cabinet might look like. He's moved the speech forward, one assumes for political opportunism, to 1 o'clock. It's a savvy move indeed, I would say, as a former spin doctor. So we are expecting him to take to the stage at conference anytime soon. When he does, we are going to be taking that speech live. But since I've spoken to you, Jack, have you managed to get any more ear to the ground of the sort of things we can expect coming out of conference? Are we expecting any big announcements or big reveals, do you think? Or is that rather now being done with the defection of Nadine Dorries?
Well, we're expecting some kind of special guest in the schedule. I can't remember whether I think it's today rather than tomorrow. We might have someone from across the pond potentially come and see us. I'm not sure. That is Donald Trump, by the way, so do not hold out hope for that. Obviously, Nigel Farage went to see him in the Oval Office, but I do hear that maybe some foreign leader might be coming to address the reform masses. Someone that is not currently in politics, but previously was. I think that could be someone to watch. But listen, I think that here at the moment at the Reform Party conference, there is a great sort of uplifting feel about it. You're right that Nigel Farage is going to want to showcase the best of his party, which he has been doing. But also I think that it was really quite telling. Zia Youssef out today saying that, and Nigel Farage has been saying this himself, that they can't just take people from sort of the elected body which they have at the moment, because obviously even though they won all those councillors, in terms of people that can fill cabinet jobs, it's still quite a small pool. And one of the main criticisms of the current government, which Reform have been levelling at Labour, is that many of their people inside the cabinet just haven't had that real-world experience which you necessarily need to do a big job. Some of them have been lawyers, some of them have been sort of union representatives, some of them have sort of worked their way up in politics. But having people come from a sort of business background who understand how to run large organisations is invaluable. And so Nigel, Zia saying that actually we would look to take people from outside of the parliamentary fold. Obviously, you probably have to make them members of the House of Lords, but having people from the city, having people, captains of industry come in into the cabinet could be quite a novel idea. It's obviously what they do in America. They don't take people in cabinet in America from Congress or the Senate. They get them from outside, and so potentially that is sort of the playbook which Reform will go down. I
mean, I wonder as well, there's a by-election coming up in Caerphilly in Wales soon enough. Of course, it is the Welsh Assembly elections on the horizon, along with London mayoral elections, the elections in Scotland as well. And so this is possibly the last big conference before they're going to have to start announcing who might be their runners and riders for very prominent positions such as First Minister. And you look at Wales and you think that is actually a position that Reform could viably take. I mean, Reform's polling in Wales arguably is better than it is across England. That's always been the way with UKIP, Brexit Party and so on and so forth. They could end up with a majority in the Senate, and there's still a load of question marks on, therefore, the very first non-Labour First Minister, who it might be. And I wonder if we might get some sense of that at this conference.
You're totally right. I think that Wales and Reform's polling in Wales is really sort of the dog that hasn't barked in the mainstream sort of media agenda over the past few months, because if you look at the polling there, they're doing incredibly well. Has always been a Labour administration in the Senate, but they've been let down spectacularly, and it does seem that there's a massive sense of drift within the Senate in terms of the Labour Party at the moment. But also, Wales is a very interesting place. Big working class heartlands, voted Leave, always voted Labour really, because of the generational tribalism, never really in large parts touched the Tories, apart from the sort of the English border places like Pembrokeshire, which has sort of been a Tory stronghold. But Reform really gives a lot of these sort of working class voters another viable option if they are so frustrated with Labour. They might never vote Tory, but someone like Nigel Farage and the Reform Party could be viable candidates. And I think at the moment maybe winning a majority in the Senate. I think the way the Senate is set up is quite deliberate, so it's very difficult to form a majority in there because they want to encourage power sharing. But at the moment, Reform look like they could be the largest party in House Labour after a generation in charge. So yeah, I mean, I think Reform's by a massive opportunity there.
Yeah, I've heard some rumours about who might be their person running for First Minister, so to speak, and lead the charge in in Wales, but I'll tell you that another day. We are waiting for Nigel Farage to take to the stage in Birmingham at the Reform UK conference. I don't think there's any chance of us missing it, because having gone over to see the big Trump rallies over in America, I think we should expect loud music and pyrotechnics. Certainly the last Reform rally I went to, he turned up hanging on a JCB with fireworks going off. He doesn't do things mildly, does Nigel? So as we wait for Nigel Farage, I'm going to let Jack and I keep you company. We will be taking Nigel's speech live as soon as he does step on stage. In the meantime, though, I can tell you this, and this is definitely worth discussing. Keir Starmer is said to be considering abolishing the position of Labour deputy leader to avoid a divisive race to succeed Angela Rayner. Now, one can see why technically he might want to do this to try and prevent there being a headache and faction fighting, but it's a pretty strange look to get rid of that position, don't you think, Jack?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can see why he wants to do it, because having two people in the Labour Party which are elected inevitably creates a bit of a fission, and the deputy has their own power base and they have their own authority. We know, despite Keir Starmer's pretty heartwarming and gushing letter about Angela Rayner today, saying that they've been close friends for years, they've had a very tense relationship. Keir Starmer famously in 2021, after losing that Hartlepool by-election to Boris Johnson, tried to shift the blame onto Angela Rayner and demote her. She then had a massive strop, and Keir Starmer ended up bottling it. But having these two people who are elected is incredibly difficult, and it has a strange relationship. I mean, think about Jeremy Corbyn and Tom Watson. They absolutely hated each other's guts, so much so that Tom Watson tried to plot to oust Jeremy Corbyn, and Jeremy Corbyn in turn tried to plot to oust Tom Watson. And so this position is, I think, probably one which Keir Starmer could do without. It's often a constant thorn in the side of Labour leaderships if they don't get on. But you can imagine the actual Labour membership going absolutely apoplectic if they are given less of a say in Labour Party policy. And often what you've seen is a yin and a yang. So, you had Jeremy Corbyn, who was pretty left-wing, Tom Watson sort of more towards the centre. Then you had Keir Starmer, who is more sort of towards the centre, and Angela Rayner, who was sort of the darling of the left. And so I think that Keir Starmer, you can understand the strategy behind trying to get rid of this. He might provoke a big old backlash, though, from his Labour membership, many of whom aren't very happy with him at the moment and the direction of this government anyway.
Jack, thank you ever so much for your input. I can tell you that Nigel Farage is about to take to the stage in Birmingham to speak live at the Reform UK conference, no doubt with Razzmatazz. Let's listen.
And we will save Britain. Reform will save Britain. Thank you, and have a fantastic conference. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Andrea. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in a change to the programme. Before we move on, in light of the breaking news reaching us this lunchtime from Westminster, that, of course, is the resignation of the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner. At a time of national political crisis, it is only right and proper that we hear from our leader, the man who has already, ladies and gentlemen, changed British politics for good, and he's about to do it again.
We have a chance of doing something really historic.
I came back into politics on the 3rd of June last year because I believe that our country has to be turned around. Because I said that we would get millions of votes. Reform is now in government. And the big shout-out message, and it's very, very clear, is if you vote Reform, you get Reform.
Well, here we go. This is going to be it. This is going to be the speech of Nigel Farage at the Reform UK conference. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be with you from 10 to 1 all next week, and I hand over the show to Ian Collins.
Of its history, we will stand up and defend that to anybody.
Reform is now topping a national poll.
I've had some great successes in life. I've had plenty of failures. But what I bring to this now is experience. What I bring to this now is passion. I'm not afraid of anything. I believe that Reform represents a silent majority in Britain. And when it comes to country, of what a nation is, this is where I do personally want to confront the Prime Minister head on. There's nobody on these issues of sovereignty, on these issues of national self-interest. There is nobody more determined than me.
Can we make history? Are you going to be part of it? Thank you very, very much indeed. We are all ships rising on a turquoise tide, headed ever closer towards winning the next general election. It's been a day of some considerable news. It seems that female politicians are all the rage at the moment. We had our own very positive announcement overnight, of which you will hear more. But the reason that I've moved this speaking time forward is because this government is deep in crisis. Not only have they fallen into deep popularity within just a year of winning the general election, but it's become clear to all of us that it is a cabinet of wholly unqualified people to run our country. They are not fit to govern. I suppose we're lucky in one way that at least the Chancellor was a senior economist at the Bank of England for 10 years. And that the business secretary is a fully qualified solicitor. And that the deputy prime minister and housing secretary, until half an hour ago, is an accomplished property developer and speculator. But you simply can't get away, can you, from being the housing secretary and avoiding £40,000 of council tax. And it screams to entitlement. It screams to a government that, despite all the promises that this would be a new, different kind of politics, is as bad, if not worse, than the one that went before. We've been told that right now the Prime Minister is organising a reshuffle. Yet another reset. And that the names of the new cabinet will come out later on this afternoon. Well, I didn't want the Prime Minister to do anything to spoil our conference, and that's why I've come on the stage now to say they are not fit to govern. The Conservative Party are riven. In fact, Nadine Dorries said overnight, the Conservative Party are dead. Deservedly so. Deservedly so. And they will not be forgiven. They will not be forgiven for their betrayals over the course of the last 5 years. Mass migrations, illegal immigrants crossing the channel, sky-high taxes, and much else. But in the middle of this meltdown of these two parties that have dominated for 100 years British politics, in the middle of all of this, there is a new, strong, unified party that speaks with one voice, that knows it's determined to put the interests of Britain and the British people above that of outdated international treaties or dubious courts. We are the patriotic party. We are the party that stands up for decent working people, and we are the party on the rise. Just think, I stood before you this time last year. At this very conference, we only had a handful of branches around the country We now have 450 branches that we've set in place. As we entered the general election of 2024, we had 30,000 paid-up members. In the last hour, we've gone through 240,000 members. This time last year, we had very few councillors. Now we have over 900, and I've got to tell you, last year I said to all of you, May the 1st is coming. Volunteer to stand in the county elections. And even though the government cancelled the elections in 9 of the counties that we would have won, we still won outright 10 county councils and became the largest party in 3 others. Unbelievable. And I'll be honest with you, as I toured round the country on May the 2nd, I frankly myself couldn't believe just how well we'd done. Couldn't believe the extent to which we'd caught the mood. And the real icing on the cake, and it may only have been by 6 votes, but never let anyone tell you ever again that my vote doesn't count, because it does. And we got Sarah Pochard elected in the Runcorn by-election. We have topped over 100 of the last opinion polls. Our lead is between 10 and 15% against any of the other parties. And I tell you what, given the state of chaos they're in, I think we can increase that lead further yet. Folks, it's happening. Now the next step is going to be even bigger. Scottish Parliament elections, Welsh Senate elections, and indeed a by-election that will take place in Wales next month. All 32 London boroughs will be up for election, and we will take that seriously as we get ready to have a mayoral candidate so that we can beat Sadiq Khan next time round. We're going to need up to 5,000 vetted candidates to fight those elections next year. Those elections next year are an essential building block as we head towards a general election. Now, talking of the general election, it's supposed to be in, I know you want it now, but it's not going to come now. The next general election is not due until 2029. But let me tell you, it's all right, I'll cheer you up in a moment. Angela Rayner going, not just as Housing Secretary, but also as elected Deputy Leader of the Labour Party and Deputy Prime Minister, means there will be an internal election in the Labour Party. Already, they're facing the threat of Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana. That's if the two could ever agree on anything, including the choice of a party name. But I put this to you. This battle for Deputy Leader of the Labour Party will be very like the battles they had back in the early 1980s. The left of the Labour Party will rear its voice. We're used to hearing stories of splits in the Conservative Party. We're about to witness a big rift in the Labour Party too. And I think if there is one really big message from me to this conference, I don't think, and the bond markets back me up, and the leftward drift backs me up, and before long, there'll be Labour MPs that reckon they've got a better chance on the Jeremy Corbyn sectarian ticket, because frankly, folks, that's what's going on in our country. We have sectarian politics emerging. I loathe it. But there'll come a point when many MPs, Labour MPs, think they've got a better chance of being re-elected under that ticket, under Corbyn, than they do under Sir Keir. I think there is every chance now of a general election happening in 2027, and we must be ready for that moment. Now, we also, as a party, have to raise a lot of money, and we're making progress. Our Treasurer, Charlton Edwards, and his team doing a great job. Our Honorary Treasurer, Nick Candy, has personally already put in over £500,000 of his own money. Nick, we thank you for that. But I want you two in the branches to go out and work and raise money, to volunteer to be candidates, to deliver leaflets, to knock on doors. We need to be the party of activism. And I think all of us believe, don't we, in what we're doing? Yeah. So we must all play our part and do our bit. But one of the counter-arguments, well, there are two. One is it a one-man band? I went to the football shirt stand earlier, and there you've got 11 names. Jenkins, Tice, Pochin, and so on. 11 of our most senior elected representatives. And I stood in the middle and held up the shirt that said Farage, and the BBC asked me, am I a one-man band? I said, look at this lot behind me. And one of the joys of this year has been seeing so many other senior reform figures appearing on television, appearing on radio, writing articles for newspapers. We've broadened the scope, and fresh new people are coming in. People like Colin Sutton, the legendary detective, heading up our Police and Crime Commission. People like Vanessa Frake, the toughest prison governor in the country. And many more talented people will come, and I don't believe that all governments have to be MPs in the House of Commons. That's the convention, but it doesn't work, does it? You appoint people to be a rail minister, an education secretary who have no knowledge of the department they're supposed to run. And we will bring in a ministry of all the talents from all walks of life, and to hell with convention. But that brings me on to the other argument, where I will admit we have some weakness, and that is that none of our senior figures have ever been in government before. Oh, we're beginning to see already, through the county councils that we run, certain obstructions from the civil service being put in our way. And I imagine if we win the next election, we may face similar barriers to the kinds of real change that this country needs. So we need experienced people. We need people who have been in government. We need people who understand just how the system works and what the difficulties are. We need people with experience. And that is why, after a lengthy debate and consultation, that is why I'm pleased to welcome today to the stage a woman who was served in Cabinet as Culture Secretary, a woman who has sold 3.5 million books, a woman who has been on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Somebody from the real world who's worked their way up, been incredibly successful, who actually crosses the boundaries from politician into celebrity. And I'm delighted that we're going to have the experience, the talent, the hard work, and the loyalty of Nadine Dorries, and I'm proud to welcome her onto the stage now.
Well, that's the most dramatic entrance I've ever made into a room, ever. Thank you for that, guys. Everyone, I want to say I am more than delighted to be amongst you today. I'm actually relieved. And the reason why I'm relieved is I feel for the first time in a number of years as though I'm at a conference and amongst people who share the same principles and values as I have always held. And I can feel it in this room, the energy and the excitement and the acknowledgement that there is a job to be done. I want to thank Nigel for that introduction, and I want to thank everybody at Reform for bringing the party to this point. The reason why, and I'm going to deliver probably a slightly more serious message, the reason why is this government is in deep and serious trouble. It is falling apart. It is dividing and fracturing. The Conservative Party did that a number of years ago. But it's not just our political parties which are in trouble. It's the country too. And just as an example of this, if you look at our economy, everything that should be going down is going up. Whether it's taxes, unemployment figures, inflation, the number of illegal immigrants who are crossing the safe continent of Europe and leaving the shores of France to arrive on our shores, everything is going up. But the most important figure, which is rising, is the interest on our government debt. Now, what does that mean? It means that the international economic community are looking at us, and they have decided that this government cannot manage the economy. It has no faith in this government to reduce public spending. And that was evidenced to us a number of weeks ago when Labour MPs refused to put through cuts to the welfare bill. And when a government shows that it can't manage its economy, and when what is happening to the Labour Party, quite obviously now, it's fracturing and dividing into two, the far left and the left. Some of us have been here before, haven't we? Some of us are still, I'm sure some members in this audience must be as old as I am, and we're here in the 70s when we've been through this before. We know where this road leads to. So we're in deep trouble, and we can't look to either of the main political parties up till now, Labour and Conservatives, to save the country. Now, I think it's an overused expression that the next general election is going to be the most important. We say at every election, it's almost like Peter and the Wolf. But for this election coming up, it really is going to be the most important ever. Because when Labour divide, as they are doing, when Corbyn takes off the left, when they unite with the pro-Gaza independents and the new left-wing firebrand leader of the Green Party, and the ragtags and bobtails who will stand as independents.
Well, you are listening to Nadine Dorries, the latest recruit for Reform UK, hopping over the fence from the Conservative Party, where she was for pretty much all of her political life, up until half an hour ago. Former Cabinet Minister, Boris Johnson, loyalist, of course. And we will duck back in when Nigel Farage, we expect to return to continue his speech, or certainly that's how it felt in the way that he appeared to leave it before he introduced Nadine Dorries. Let's get a word on all of this. Alex Dean, political commentator, is with us. Afternoon to you, Alex. Hey. I mean, there was a kind of touch, a sort of vague nod to the sort of American kind of feel to a conference, a few of those flares going off, some smoke and big screens elevating as the key speakers made it on stage. Big impact.
Yeah, that's right. And it's quite hard, I know, for viewers online or on television to hear that. But I know several people in the room who are saying how high octane it is as they're messaging back. I will say it's really quite a downbeat speech from Nadine Dorries. I was expecting, she's a very good speaker and she's capable of, doing a barnstorming performance. This is really quite dour, which is not what you expect normally from your latest defector. But, the broader picture we're seeing here from Farage is go back to your constituencies and prepare for government, which David Steele, of course, told his Liberals in 1981 and didn't.
Yes.
Of course, history doesn't always repeat itself. He is doing much better in the polls than the Liberals did then, and indeed much better than the Conservative Party or Labour would like. Yeah. But there's a long way between now and the next election. They certainly can't take anything for granted.
Nigel Farage seems to have spent a big chunk of his political career falling into these kind of beautiful, serendipitous moments, as he did here. Half an hour before he's about to give his big speech, the Deputy Prime Minister resigns. Now, that would be a gift for any opposition party, of course, to be able to have some fun and high japes with the story, and obviously Nigel Farage did that, but particularly pronounced for Reform, of course, given that they are the party that feels more like the current opposition.
Yeah, well, they also feel like they're outsiders and that they're different, and therefore they're not involved in things like this. I mean, you can't take it away from Farage. He's been grafting away for a long time in the European Parliament, over 20 years, from outlier to making Brexit absolutely mainstream. Yeah. But you're right, too, about the Rayner piece. I mean, goodness gracious. She hung on for a week when she obviously should have gone prior. She's hurt her party in the doing of it. She's hurt the Prime Minister in the doing of it. Farage may be short on some of the answers, but he's really, really good at pointing out the problems. And boy, did she give them an easy one to have a go at.
Absolutely. And we'll come to Rayner in a few moments' time. I mean, Nigel Farage is in that curious position, Alex, isn't he, where, like all opposition parties, I suppose, but there's such momentum and booster rockets around Reform UK at the moment that you haven't really got to say very much. You can swipe and point and lampoon the government of the day. You can make some pretty bold promises. Of course, you have to be slightly more careful as you go towards general election. But it's always a bit of it's one of the few almost positives of being in opposition, that it's an open goal almost any day of the week.
Yes, although we do live in a complex political environment. Farage talked about the forthcoming local elections and national elections in the devolved areas. I mean, his party is odds on to win in Wales and run the Welsh Parliament. If that happens, of course, on the one hand, they'll be able to demonstrate that they're delivering something and running something. But on the other hand, there's the jeopardy of exposure. And he won't just be an outsider, and his party won't just be an outsider anymore. The failure to deliver will be on them.
The failure to deliver will be on them, absolutely. And it's interesting that there's almost, again, one of those amazing moments for Reform, that they will have a kind of, assuming they win Wales, and it's looking pretty good for them in that department. But what an incredible kind of hors d'oeuvre, if you like, to the main event as they would see it.
Yeah, and they're giving us clues as to how they would behave if they do form government, because they, of course, control 10 councils, large ones, including places like Kent, where they are using those councils in their own terms as like seed beds or test beds of what their position for government would be in the future, seeking to have a Doge equivalent of stripping out extra costs. I can see Nigel coming back onto the stage. But I think that's what they're doing with local government and what they'll do with Wales too.
Indeed. Alex, stay with us. We'll be back. More from Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, keynote speech at their party conference in Birmingham.
Very good.
And to all of you watching on live stream, and I know there's a massive audience out there, listen to what Nadine just had to say. Again and again at elections, they talk the talk, they never walk the walk. But we mean what we say, and we will deliver that promise I make you. Now, Nadine is right. Our country is in a very bad place. It's a mixture between anger and despair. Is it any wonder that the protests have sprung up outside the hotels? We are in economic decline. We are in societal breakdown with law and order. We are in cultural decline. It's as if our leaders have forgotten who we were, and when we want to question it, now they will do everything they can to crush free speech online. We are not going to have this. Our country is without doubt in the most dangerous place it's been in my lifetime. And we are, and I get this in the street from people point at me and say, you are the last chance we've got to get this country back on track. We are the last chance the country's got to get this country back on track. And that is why, let's make Britain great again. I've heard that phrase somewhere else before, but I agree with it. And that is why, talking of flags, that is why spontaneously across the country, there's barely a lamppost now that doesn't have the Cross of St. George or the Union Jack. And we love it. What is going on out there is the British people are sticking two fingers up with every flag they place to an establishment that doesn't believe in Britain, to an establishment that thinks more of the interests of other countries and foreign courts than it thinks about its own people. And those flags say, we have had enough. And we will, and we're determined, we will make Britain safer again, beginning with zero tolerance policing. If you shoplift, you will be prosecuted. We will bring back genuine stop and search on our streets to drive out knives. We will deport foreign criminals. I'm off to have lunch in a few weeks with the Prime Minister of Albania. I might book a very big plane and take a load with me. I'm not sure yet. And we will stop what is a threat to our national security, what is a danger to girls and women on our streets. We will stop the boats, and we will detain and deport those who illegally break into our country, doing what nearly every normal country around the rest of the world does. You cannot come here illegally and stay. We will stop the boats within 2 weeks of winning government. We will. And we will stop dangerous organizations with links to terrorism operating in our country. Quite why we've been so gutless about this, both Conservative and Labour, I don't know. All across the Middle East,
and we appear just on that point. Oh, we've got the audio back. Nigel Farage, party leader of Reform UK, speaking.
And we will make Britain more prosperous again. Our energy policy, led by Red Ed, is a complete and utter disaster. You've heard of her, haven't you? It's all well and good for Kemi Badenoch to say drill, baby, drill. Who was it that put 75% super taxes on North Sea exploration? Who was it that committed net zero to law in this country. They should not be believed. They should not be listened to. We will scrap ridiculous, harmful, wasteful net zero policies. We will start producing our own oil and gas. We will end the full subsidies for renewable energy, which has been going on your bills for years, yet no one told you. We will end Britain being the most expensive country in the world for industrial energy. We will bring cheap energy, and we will do our utmost to re-industrialise Britain, to start making things here that we want and we need. We will save huge sums. We will save huge sums of wasted public money, as our Doge unit has already begun to do in the county councils. We will do that. And we will, over the course of the next months, outline some serious cuts to the welfare budget in this country. It is not fair. It is not fair on people that get up with their alarm every morning, go to work and pay their taxes, for those that choose a different lifestyle to earn more money than they do. It is morally wrong, it is outrageous, and we'll be the party that backs working people. And we'll make London a centre for digital assets and cryptocurrencies, bringing thousands of jobs and taking us firmly, as well as reindustrialising, into the 21st century technologies. But you can't do that without lots of cheap energy. We're literally betraying anyone in Britain that wants to be part of the modern digital age. And we'll end this disastrous exodus. The rich are leaving. Some people think that's fine. But if the rich leave, if the biggest taxpayers leave, it means everybody else has to pay more. It doesn't make any sense. The politics of envy has never, ever worked. I don't want big taxpayers to leave. But equally, I don't want the young and the ambitious to leave, and they're leaving in droves. So we will make sure that people come back and see us as a place to be. And let's start teaching kids at school trades and services. You know, the one thing that AI will not replace is the local plumber. They're going to make a fortune in the years to come. In fact, looking at the bills, I suspect some of them are already. But most of all, we need to make Britain proud again. We've lost our sense of who we are. We refuse to acknowledge publicly the Judeo-Christian culture and heritage that we have, and that underpins everything that we are. We refuse to have our kids' minds poisoned in schools and universities with a twisted interpretation of the history of these amazing islands. We will not stand for it. We will police the streets and not the tweets, and change all of that legislation that is damaging our rights so very, very much. And we will respect our armed forces, and in particular our veterans, who are those who served in Northern Ireland and elsewhere, being hounded for things that happened 50 years ago. That will end. Now, I've laid out just some of our, and I don't apologise at all for the breadth of our ambition, because that's what this country needs. It needs hope. It needs belief. It needs to smile again. It needs to believe in who we are and that we can have a great future if we turn these things round. And I'm going in order to get all these policies brought together under one roof, and it's a massive workload. I'm going to ask Zia Youssef from this day to be our head of policy to bring all of this together. And I will, in the next few weeks, open up a new department within the party, leaning on the experience that Nadine and others have, and others will come. Others with experience will come, don't worry about that. And we will open a department for preparing for government so that when we win, we can hit the ground running. I promised you a year ago I would professionalise the party. Have a look around you. Have a look at this conference. Haven't our team done just the most amazing job? I promised you I would democratise the party. I think the fact that 70,000 of you voted for our new board members was an incredible show that you believe in the party. You wanted this democratisation. And all I can do is to promise you that I will give this everything. I will give this absolutely everything that I've got. No one cares more about the state of this country than I do. I am determined to do something about it. I came out of last year out of retirement to try and lead a movement that would get our country back. I think we're on track. I think we're on our way. I'm proud to lead this party, and I'm proud of you for the amazing contribution you've made to our success over the next year. But I tell you what, folks, that was just the beginning. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And Nigel Farage completes his speech, big speech, at the Reform UK Party conference in Birmingham. Kind of doing their best to give it that kind of sort of American conference. It doesn't quite work over here, but certainly the point of discussion or debate ain't the lights or the bazookas or the smoke. It's the speech itself. Did it resonate? Did it do the job? Did you sense that this absolutely is a Prime Minister in waiting? David Bull now taken to the stage, party chairman, formerly of this parish, of course. Let's get a word on all of this. James Mathewson, writer, political commentator, former Labour spokesman, is with us. Good afternoon to you, James. Can you hear us okay, James?
I can.
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I nearly didn't hear you over the fireworks in Birmingham. I mean, that was... Andrew Lloyd Webber can't put on a show like that, it seems.
Indeed.
What did you make of it?
Worrying times, Ian. Very, very, very worrying times. The language that I've just heard repeated by Nigel Farage is the language of Donald Trump. There's no doubt about it. Everything from... I've written down a few things. No one cares more than I do. Excuse me, I mean... It's just staggering, the way that he's talking about himself, the ego that's been stroked. And this is a man who is fresh off the plane from America, talking down this country and slagging us off on the world stage. It is absolutely staggering to see him taken to the stage and, you know, saying, I'm ready to now be your next Prime Minister after doing something like that. It just blows my mind.
Is that not what a party leader's meant to do? I mean, the Green, Jack Palahniuk will be doing the same at the Green conference, and I'm sure Ed Davey, I think he's still around, will be doing the same at the Lib Dems, and of course, so will Kemi Badenoch.
Well, this is it. It's not so much that fact of that. It's the fact that this is up against the fact he's just got back from America, where he is, you know, hand in glove with Donald Trump on everything. And I understand there will be those of your viewers who like that. There'll be those of your viewers who wish Donald Trump was our leader and our leader right now. The concern about this for me is the pathological issue that Nigel Farage has with A, the truth, and B, freedom of speech when the very irony is that he talks about himself and his supporters being stopped from saying things that they want to be able to say, when actually the reality of the fact is he doesn't like anybody disagreeing with him. He shuts down local newspapers from reporting on their councils that they control, and everything you've seen from him leads us down a path that,
well, one councillor banned a journalist from a council meeting. I mean, that's not really Nigel Farage's diktat, right? I mean, that's not the direction of travel.
He shuts down anybody who tries to challenge him. He gaslights. He spins, he pivots.
Well, he might disagree with the challenge. I've not heard him shut down any. I've not heard him ban anybody because they disagree.
Every question I've heard from a journalist, he either gaslights it or spins it back. This is not a man who likes being challenged on anything that he talks.
Did you hear Keir Starmer yesterday when asked, will he sack Angela Rayner if it turns out she's broken the rules? He couldn't answer that either. I mean, is that gaslighting? Is that lying?
No,
is that venality?
I think that's just somebody who doesn't know what he's doing, to be honest, right now, which is very concerning in itself. Look, the main political parties in Britain are responsible for this. They are responsible for the Nigel Farage show. They have allowed this to happen, whether it be the Tories giving in to him on Brexit, whether it be the Labour Party just completely capitulating their duties in government. It is a complete mess at the moment. And unfortunately, when people face desperate times, they look to desperate measures to resolve them.
What is desperate about this? You've got
desperate measures.
I mean, I understand. You're not going to be a Nigel Farage supporter, James, but have you done what a lot of people, not just on the left but in the Conservative Party as well, spectacularly miss? Things have moved. Times have changed. Appetites are in different places now, and people are fed up with the status quo. They're fed up with the conventions, the kind of almost groupthink of Westminster. They're looking for something new. They're looking for somebody who speaks their language. Nigel Farage speaks their language. I mean, this isn't just a kind of a fringe group anymore. This party's ahead in the polls by some measure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. You're 100% right on all of that. This is the failings of that entire political class.
But you're talking about it as if there's been some horrendous error in our anthropological journey.
No.
Something's gone terribly wrong when people are supporting Nigel Farage.
No, I mean, the thing is, here's the reality. You point out, very rightly so, that this is the making of years of people not being listened to, of those issues on repeat from government, people not understanding the lives of real people, communities like those that I grew up in Northumberland and working class communities in the northeast. We've seen this for years. Every government has just neglected these people and not done enough. Now, when I campaigned for the Labour Party, for 15 years nearly, to get them into government, I wanted to see that change made through the Labour Party, and I believed it could be through the democratic processes of the Labour Party. The Labour government that we've got in power right now have just done absolutely nothing to seriously tackle those issues. They've done some good things, I grant them it. A lot of them Angela Rayner's responsibility, ironically. But unfortunately, we have not seen enough because people's lives so drastically changed and things have become so bad for so many people that they need real change. And the only person right now who has the platform and who seems to look authentically and believe in what they're saying is Nigel Farage. That's one side of it, right? Agree with that altogether. The other side of it is, I want to say to your viewers, do not believe a word this man says.
Why?
Nigel Farage is a symptom of a problem because he's a liar. He's a charlatan.
Why is it? Because you disagree with him, James? He's
no,
a
not
liar
because I disagree with him. Because he's a former banker, right? Who contributed towards the banking crisis.
There's a lot of bankers in the Labour Party.
In 2008, there are, exactly. That's my issue with them as well, Ian. I'm not here to defend the Labour Party or anything like that. I'm saying they've all got their issues. The problem is Nigel Farage is not your solution. If tomorrow Nigel Farage had every single immigrant out of this country, as is his will and his want, you would not get that money in those communities that he promises you. You would not get the radical change that you want. Because we've just heard him there standing up saying that he wants to serve the millionaires and the billionaires, as Donald Trump has done in America.
But he didn't say that, did he? You're giving a skewed interpretation.
He said he wants to bring back. He wants to bring back the poor rich people who've been chased out of this country. That's what he said.
That's a good thing, right? We want more people who are rich and successful and entrepreneurs.
Not when people are suffering. The problem is
they're not suffering at the expense of a rich bloke.
No, they are. They really are. We have seen more billionaires created.
Yeah, why is that a bad thing? We've got more billionaires than we used to have. That's a good thing, right?
It's that discrepancy.
They haven't stolen the money from poor people.
It's that staggering. Yes, they have.
How have they stolen? Well, they went round people's houses and robbed them.
How do you become a billionaire?
No, the Labour government have stolen money from poor people. The Conservative Party have stolen money from poor people.
I'm sorry. The government does not steal money. This idea, this narrative...
It does if it taxes the pants off you, removes your winter fuel allowance and tells farmers to get in the bin. That's theft.
Bad policies. But let me tell you now that you do not... taxation is not the same as a private company. Nigel Farage has no commitment to our NHS. He has no commitment to our welfare state. He has no commitment to public services. This is a private banker, a very wealthy individual. And I'm not being funny, but if you look at the social issues, I have never seen a man so comfortable shaking hands with rapists, whether it be Conor McGregor, Donald Trump, Andrew Tate. This man keeps bad company. He's bad news for us, and he's a cancer on our politics.
Well, if you want to go through everyone who had a photograph taken with a person that we then later discovered had a nefarious past, there's a big fat list of those people you've advised, people you've worked with before, James. Have spent many a time breaking bread with dodgy characters.
I am confident that I have not stood and smiled and shaken hands with 4 or 5 rapists.
Well, you may not have done. You may not have done, but half your party loved the quaff of champagne.
Mate.
Well,
Ian,
the party that you were a spokesman for.
Great, yeah. The party that I once had. Listen, like your viewers, the party that I once had faith in that I no longer do. Yeah. My point is, right, I'm not saying support them. I'm not saying support anyone. I'm saying don't support Nigel Farage.
Yeah, but you don't really know why, other than your innate leftness, James, precludes you from understanding the appetite of what people are looking for.
It's not the appetite of what people are looking for. This is textbook fascism. We've seen this in America.
Textbook fascism?
It's textbook the path to fascism.
Mosley was textbook fascism, not Nigel Farage. A bloke went to school in Dulwich, happened to work in the city.
Yeah, what happened when he was at school in Dulwich? What did his teacher say about him when he was at school?
Well, I'm pretty sure lots of our teachers said some dodgy things about us.
Nobody called me fat. None of my teachers, they had many gripes about me, and I tell you, but none of them had concerns that I might be fascist.
Well, maybe one of them didn't like Nigel Farage. I can't speak on behalf of his teacher from 45 years ago.
The concern is that there is a pattern here. You find someone to blame, you scapegoat them, you point everybody in that direction, you enrich your friends, you work for the interests of a private wealthy elite, as Nigel Farage has always done as a banker.
But if that was the case, he wouldn't win the election again, would he? He wouldn't win another election.
It's not that he wouldn't win of course he won the election. Adolf Hitler won an election.
I don't think we're quite talking,
I'm sorry.
Equivalences here, are we?
With the severity in which it deserves. You elect these people at your peril. Donald Trump right now is elected. He has a mandate.
Give me an example where somebody has elected somebody at their peril based on the kind of criteria you're referring to.
What do you mean?
Why would it be at your peril if you vote for Nigel Farage? Yeah, I mean...
Adolf Hitler, Mussolini...
Well, so you're now saying that if you vote for reform, it's the equivalent of voting for the Nazi Party or for Mussolini?
I seriously believe, I'm afraid, that we are on a dangerous path.
I seriously believe you're on another planet, James. You can't get your head around it. You're so stuffed up your kind of socialist roots that you can't get your head out your backside and see the light.
I think you can't see the light. I think those of you in conservative talking TV and radio, unfortunately...
I'm just asking the questions here. I'm just asking... Listen, I'm a man who respects Jeremy Corbyn, for goodness sake.
Yeah, great.
I can see why people would like Jeremy Corbyn, but I can also see why people would like Nigel Farage.
Can you not see the danger of Nigel Farage?
Well, I can see why some people might say, oh, I don't think he's very good, I'm not going to vote for him. I don't think the word danger springs to mind when I think of Nigel Farage.
You can't see danger. When people scapegoat communities and minorities...
OK, we've got the news coming up. We have to stop there, James.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
We're absolutely packed and rammed at this end with news-based delights. So much happening. Lots to talk about. Angela Rayner, of course, that news over the last hour or so, has resigned as Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary after admitting she underpaid stamp duty on her second home. She says she deeply regrets the mistakes and takes full responsibility. Well, that's very decent of you, Angela. We will watch this space to see what happens next. When the ethics watchdog Sir Laurie Magnus said that Rayner had, quote, acted with integrity and exemplary commitment to public service, but concluding she breached the ministerial code. Prime Minister Keir Starmer added she will remain a major figure in the party while a major cabinet reshuffle is believed to be underway. Will they replace the role of Deputy Prime Minister? And meanwhile, you heard it here live on the programme. Nigel Farage moved his conference speech forward following Rayner's resignation, declaring Labour is not fit to govern and warning the fight for the next Deputy Prime Minister will tear this government apart. Comments from you along the way as well. 0344 499 1000. Loads to get through. Let's cross back to Birmingham to get a word on the big stories of the day, particularly that leader's speech from Nigel Farage. Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor, is live, who was there in the auditorium just moments ago. Isabel, I won't get you to comment on the flares, the smoke and the staging. A very kind of, it's almost an Americanised thing. I understand what they were doing there. But what about the speech? What did you make of Mr Farage's big speech? And, of course, important, the timing of this, which nobody could have made up, an hour after the Deputy PM resigned.
That's right. Well, Nigel Farage was due to speak mid-afternoon today, but that was brought forward amid some speculation that the Labour Party was planning to drip out new ministerial appointments precisely to coincide with Mr Farage's speech in an effort to do whatever they could to overshadow it. It was a typically Farage barnstorming performance, all scrambled together at the very short notice, and there were some pretty important announcements out of it, actually. I would start with a pledge to stop the small boats within 2 weeks of taking office. If Nigel Farage wins the next election, he has promised that those small boats will cease to cross the Channel within a fortnight. Now, many of our viewers and listeners will say, well, we really, really hope that this Labour government will stop the boats long before then. But many others will fear that that just isn't going to happen. There was another important announcement on the creation of a new kind of unit for preparation for government, and that is kind of driven by Reform's early experiences at local government level and the level of obstruction that the newly elected Reform leaders in those councils are facing as they try to push through Reform agendas. And if the party's experiencing that kind of resistance at a local level, this is a really big warning sign of what is to come if they get elected in 2029, or if it's earlier, as Mr Farage has speculated today. There's another announcement that I want to point to, which I think is also very important, and that is that from the main stage today, the Reform leader pledged that under a Reform government there would be no more Muslim Brotherhood in the UK. That is an extremist Islamic organisation that is proscribed by most of our allies, ironically proscribed in many parts of the Middle East, including the United Arab Emirates, where I live. It's has been a source of much bewilderment and, frankly, frustration among our Middle Eastern allies, in particular the UAE. that Muslim Brotherhood is not banned. David Cameron looked at banning it, stopped short of it. So did the Labour Party. They've never done it. And so that has come from Reform Today. And this is all about trying to, tackle Islamic extremism. So those are three really keynote announcements, I would have said, from today. And I would expect a lot more to come over the course of the next 24 hours from this conference.
Isabel, is it fair to say that, we know that Nigel is a gifted orator, he can command a room, he walks into a room, people wait to hear what he's got to say. And of course, when you're in opposition, there aren't that many advantages being in opposition, but one of them, I suppose, is that you can throw stones and kick balls into open goals on a fairly regular basis. And of course, you can aim high with your promises. And that is a good place to be. And of course, as you move more towards a general election, you have to refine those promises and put some meat on the bones. But when you put all of that together, Nigel Farage can't lose at the moment in terms of winning over the room.
Well, that's absolutely right. I was just thinking as you said that, this is why I'm a journalist, not a politician, because it's always so much easier, isn't it, to criticise from the sidelines and to actually implement really difficult stuff. And I'm not under any illusions, someone who's been part of this, if you like, reform journey on the right, about the scale of the challenge that a newly elected reform government would face in actually pushing through some of the very radical promises that they've made. I mean, deporting 600,000 illegal immigrants in the first term will be a massive undertaking. And, whoever is leading that, good luck to them. But you've got to be ambitious as an opposition party. You've got to make those promises and underpin them with really practical plans to actually achieve them. And there are many years to go. I'm sure many reform supporters would love an election next week, but it's not going to happen. So there is a long time to prepare for power, and that is exactly what Nigel Farage and his growing team intends to do.
I was just thinking this in the last couple of days, Isabel, that given, and this is just the nature of the democratic process, the nature of new parties, it just so happens that although there's a huge backstory, of course, to how reform was formed and all of the mechanics, it doesn't go back months, it goes back many years. You know that better than most. And the hard work and the graft that's been put in by, Nigel, Richard Tyson, others, has been, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that people don't see. But nonetheless, the reality is there's only, 5 MPs there at the moment. So we would be in this curious position. I actually find this quite exciting in one respect, that if there was a general election, you may well have somebody who currently works in Timpson's who the next day is the Home Secretary.
Well, Nigel Farage has been quite kind of embracing of that notion. He said, look, we are going to do things differently, he has said, announcing that he will bring in super talents from outside the world of politics. And, there are risks attached to that, for sure. I've seen it actually in previous administrations. I remember under Labour, I think it was probably Gordon Brown's government of all the talents, so-called goats, that came in from business, and they hated it, and they didn't last very long. But this is going to be a lot better thought out, and in fact, reform is going to have to do that, because there's only so many by-elections you can have between now and the next election. Inevitably, if reform wins, and look, there's 3 or 4 years to go. We all know in this game that a week is a very long time in politics, so who knows what may happen. I think it's a bit, you've got to be really careful about not looking like you're sort of deciding who's having what job at this early stage of the game. What you want to be doing as an opposition is actually putting in place what is required to win, never mind deciding who's having what jobs. But more generally, to bring in outside expertise, to bring in people who are absolutely brilliant and the best and the most respected in their fields and are prepared to actually serve their country in this way, I think that could be a very, very refreshing thing, albeit it's going to have a risk attached to it, but it just could be quite remarkable.
We'd be failing, Isabel, if we didn't get a word on Angela Rayner. If you remember her, former Deputy Prime Minister, also was a housing minister back in the day. You said that phrase a second ago, a week is a long time in politics. This was a matter of days for Rayner from when that story first broke. We all kind of predicted it, and it happened just before lunchtime. She resigned, as the phraseology always goes. She's gone. She'll be feeling sore, crying into her cider, I'm sure, or her vape as we speak. What do you make of where Labour are now and of that resignation? I mean, it doesn't get any more high profile for the government.
I mean, this is a devastating blow for Labour. I mean, Angela Rayner was quite simply the most exciting, charismatic, interesting and promising figure that they had. You know, look, I'll be honest, I was quite worried about Angela Rayner taking over from Keir Starmer, because I think she does have a great deal of did have a great deal of electoral appeal. All that has disintegrated, and I was wondering whether she would be able to sort of come back. You know, sometimes you have, I mean, many times I've observed this in all parties, that someone resigns in disgrace and then they're brought back again in a period of time. I think that what she has done is profoundly damaging in a way that will make it very hard for her to come back. You know, she may come back in some minor role, but I think that the idea that she could come back as a party leader now is probably for the birds. So, extremely good day for example, Wes Streeting, who's her main rival for taking over from Keir Starmer. I realised last night there was no way she could survive this after the conveyancing firm that she used for the property transaction basically hung her out to dry. Yeah. It was game over at that point. So she had no choice. She's gone. That's it. And Keir Starmer has now got a very, very weakened administration, as if it wasn't already on its knees.
It's interesting. I mean, Peter Mandelson made a couple of comebacks, didn't he, after a disgraced resignation? So I suppose, you know, 2 years down the line, she could get another portfolio. We are hearing as well, Isabel, Lucy Powell apparently to leave government in the reshuffle. That is what's being reported by Sky News at the moment. So some other heads are rolling here too.
Well, that is interesting, because Lucy Powell is kind of on the sensible wing of the party.
And current leader of the House of Commons, of course.
You know, nearer the middle than, you know, way off to the left of the reservation. So I would say that that may mark the beginnings of some kind of split. You know, we expect that the party will fracture considerably because of this new entity. Who knows what it's called? Our party, your party, God knows what party, set up by Jeremy Corbyn and his colleague on that enterprise. I think it's looking very, very difficult for Labour to regain the momentum. I don't know what appointments are at Keir Starmer's disposal that are going to excite anybody, because there's a real lack of personality in that front bench lineup, and that's where Rayner came in. That's why she was so colourful and actually gave some life to his sort of dead-eyed leadership. And so I don't know how he pulls this back together. I really don't.
Well, it's not going to be dull, is it? I mean, in our job, Isabel, you know, I bumped into a very experienced journalist in the foyer here just an hour or so before coming on air. I won't say who was almost cartwheeling out the door, because of course, you know, you live for these moments of high drama.
We love it.
And it's come in wheelbarrow loads, on the minute, by the minute.
I know. you know, I remember long years of the coalition and some years during Blair's administration where nothing ever happened, and here it's just one drama after another, isn't it? It's, you know, politics should be exciting. I want people to be excited by politics, whatever side of the argument they're on. And so who's up, who's down, who's in, who's out, I love all that stuff. It really matters. And so in many ways, I think today is a good day for the country. We are one majorly flawed politician down, and let's see what happens next.
Indeed, we will. Isabel, enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you for being with us. Isabel Oakeshott Talks, International Editor. There she was, live in Birmingham at the Reform UK Party conference. We're also hearing Lucy Powell to leave government. She's current leader of the House of Commons. Also, Ian Murray, who's the current Secretary of State for Scotland, to leave as well. Now, these aren't positions, of course, that have happened as a result of Angela Rayner having to, in inverted commas, resign. These are additional bits of news. So I reckon in the next couple of hours we will hear if there's going to be another Deputy Prime Minister. Who's talked that there might not be, the role might be. I seem to remember, one of you out there can probably correct me if I'm wrong on this, Michael Heseltine was a fairly high-profile Deputy Prime Minister to John Major. And then after that, the role kind of we had John Prescott, of course, but then the role sort of disappeared after those two. Nick Clegg, he was... Gordon Brown didn't really have a deputy, did he? Did Gordon Brown have a deputy? Nick Clegg sort of had to be a deputy because it was a coalition. But it's been an interesting role. Starmer doesn't have to have a deputy prime minister, I think is reasonable. But if they do have one, then it's a vote by Labour members that will decide upon that. So we'll watch with interest what happens there. He's certainly got to replace a housing minister. That's a crucial role right now. What does it mean in terms of a wider reshuffle? We'll bring you full details. We're going to chat to Darren Grimes, former broadcaster, now a Reform politician himself. We'll get his take on events. And, of course, we are responding both to Rayner and to Nigel Farage. We'll take your calls on the way as well. 0344 499 1000.
Fortunately, in this case, justice has been served. Every peaceful protester who went to the Bell Hotel in Epping has had their protest entirely vindicated by these verdicts. What it also shows is that this lamentable Home Office led by the deplorable Yvette Cooper, who readily admits that it puts the concerns and the interests of asylum seekers and illegal migrants
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon. Yeah, home of common sense. Angela Rayner resigns from government. Ian Murray, Lucy Powell to leave government. Nigel Farage saying government not fit for purpose. Man alive. So many headlines out here. Extraordinary. This from Paul in Fife, who says, Ian, is it possible this Labour government have the worst collection of females in government ministers in history? I'm not having a go at women in politics. I was always a huge fan of Margaret Thatcher, but the Labour ministers, Rayner, Reeves, Phillips and Cooper, Mahmood Nandi, I mean, not one of them gets a pass mark, says Paul. I mean, there might be something in that kind of accelerated gender promotion. I always thought Rayner was a pretty good operator at the dispatch box. She was kind of almost born to be there. Given her background, her lack of having any kind of the usual private Oxbridge education route, all of that. But she could hold her own up there at the dispatch box. But I mean, it's always stupidity and sort of naivety. I don't know what it is when you make a grand error like she did at Deb. I mean, she must be reliving that moment. Ever going, why didn't I just do it this way? Let's get a word from Dave in Southend. Dave, what do you got for us? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Collins. It seems like a good day to put the trash out, doesn't it? With what we got. I'd like to get back to this reform whirlwind thing. I quite agree with you. I'm not into this American-style balloons and whatever.
Yeah, it's not really us, is it?
A few things with Farage. I've always said I've never trusted him since 2019 when he sold us down the river with Johnson. So I
But you mean standing down candidates so that...
Yes. Yeah. I don't trust him. Unfortunately, there is no one else. There is nowhere else to go. I'm a bit concerned. I know she's a lobby of yours at talkTV, but Nadine Dorries was the very cretin that brought in this online safety bill, correct or not?
Yeah, I think it was. I don't know if it was just solo her. I mean, she was culture minister, so her department would have been very much over this, of course.
So Farage is bringing Tories that people don't want to know anymore. The very Tory that brought in what is sending our country into a spiral of madness. And if this is the best that he thinks he can get from the Tories to lead the new government that he hopes to get, then we're going to be in the same position as this bunch of lowlife we've got in at the moment.
Isn't it, Dave? Just
only got the cultural minister's job. She wasn't Home Secretary or Foreign Secretary.
Yeah, true.
She got a low one. I think this is a mistake. As I saw with Miss Phillips today, when she spoke to Leela, the lovely lady who's a councillor...
Yeah, the Westminster councillor, yeah.
She wasn't sure about that either.
True, yeah, she was hesitant on that point. But isn't the point here, Dave? I mean, two things I would say. One about trusting politicians. My default position is always you shouldn't trust any politician of any party. That should be your starting point. Right, they want to be politicians, they want high office, they want to orchestrate, big changes in how our money is spent. So my starting position is whether you're left, right, somewhere in the middle, I probably don't want to trust you until they can prove otherwise. So I think that's a good place to begin. Secondly, the Nadine Dorries thing is more... Do you not think it's more symbolic than specific? You're right. I mean, Nadine Dorries, I know her a little bit, not that well, but obviously working here, bumping into her on a few occasions. You know, she's a working-class girl, she has all of that. But she was a Conservative cabinet minister. That's the point, isn't it? That's the headline for reform.
Well, what I'm saying to you is this. Reform is going to make a big mistake if they're going to start taking the garbage from Conservatives. I've got no time for her. She's of no significance. If it's proved that she phoned Johnson first, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if they want to bring him back into reform as well. But when you listen to Farage, like I say, I don't trust him, but there is no one else at this moment in time. But when he was talking about cryptocurrency, I'm sorry, I'm not in favour of that. I'm not in favour of crypto.
That was a bit of a weird... It's a weird thing. I mean, that's something that Donald Trump talks about a lot, cryptocurrency and all the rest. It's like, you don't... You know, there's obviously certain elements of the way the Trump administration has been run that Reform have thought that clearly plays well to the room. We'll have some of that, and I get it. That's exactly what you kind of have to do when you're trying to sell yourself to the public. There's quite a lot of the Trump administration that even Trump supporters go, I'm not sure about that. You know, it's not... The idea that Trump is the Messiah is also a nonsense, right?
That is true, but what I'm saying is that I don't care about America at this moment in time.
Fair point.
You know, America only came into the Second World War at the very end. Let's be honest, and they gave us all the garbage ships when we begged them to help us. So everyone thinks that they're the sort of like 7th Cavalry. Think again. They only think of themselves. I'm not interested over there at the moment. I'm not interested in here. Our country is sinking into an abyss to a point that I don't think we're going to get out of it. But the way he was talking about cryptocurrency, the main man and woman on the street don't give a damn about crypto, probably don't even understand the stuff.
Of course, yeah. But then he's maybe giving a message to the city there as well.
Well, that is by and by. You can't rely on that sort of person, Nadine Dorries, and try and convince me that, oh, look at what we've got. We've got Nadine Dorries. My God, if that's the best he can get to come over, then we are going to be in trouble. And when he talks about bringing in people from outside, you know, these captains of industry and all this?
Yeah.
Well, look at our water companies and all that. I mean, they're captains of industry, and look at the state of them. Look at the state of
well, I don't think you'd be bringing too many of those guys in, but I take your point. Listen, great call, Dave. I can get I understand the kind of frustration. We're not in a perfect place, and I don't think Reform would suggest we are either. That's Dave in Southend. This is William, North Ayrshire. How you doing, William?
Good afternoon, Ian.
Afternoon.
Just as usual, can I thank you and your crew and your production team for giving me this opportunity. There's just been too much has been going on. The Labour Party is it's an absolute bloodbath, to be honest with you. Keir Starmer is a lame duck, an absolute lame duck, and I'll tell you why. Because see, Angela Rayner and Keir Starmer have never got on. Ever since Keir Starmer tried to sack her last year, and the unions stopped it, or they threatened to withdraw their but anyway...
did he try to sack Angela Rayner last year?
Yes, he tried to sack her. Look into it, yes. He tried to sack her, and the unions stepped forward and says, if you try that, we will withdraw.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that threat, but I don't ever remember any specific story where he tried to sack her. Anyway, nonetheless, let's continue, William.
Right. As I say, this is an absolute bloodbath, and Keir Starmer is just a gift that keeps giving to Reform. I'm a Reform member, and if it wasn't for Keir Starmer, we wouldn't be in the position we're in. Keir Starmer has brought to the front what Tony Blair tried to do in 10 years, maybe 15 years. Keir Starmer has done it in 1 year, and the people have just turned and says, what the hell is going on here? What is going on? And Angela Rayner, there's going to be a lot more revelations over the next week.
Quite possibly. Quite possibly. We will watch. We will watch with interest, William. I tell you, it's not going to be dull. The next few years are not going to be dull. So, and thank you, William, especially for your initial comments as well. Really appreciate that. The other thing that's not going to be, I mean, remember, yes, a lot can happen to this government. They, of course, will be hoping they get a few things right, where people go, oh, hang on, well, maybe we are a bit better off. I'm not seeing this. I think that a lot of the damage this government have done happened in, the first 3 months. Winter fuel, farmers, things like this, sort of setting a tone of, are you on our side? Are you on our side? You guys? What, the left, the side of the working, really? And that's just the two big issues, and there are many others in the box. Some spectacular resignations. You have the person in charge of corruption facing corruption charges, the person in charge of homelessness making people homeless, and now the person in charge of housing who can't pay the correct stamp duty. I mean, it's an absolute bloody mess. They've really, really got to work hard. I think they're busted already. I know there's 4 years to go. That could be a long time. Reform in that 4 years, a couple of things could happen there. I mean, things could just go wildly northwards and continue to rise, and the star, the unstoppable star that is Farage and other elements of the party, just grow and grow. And if they nab Wales and get Wales in the bag next year, boy, I mean, that is not just a bit of a game changer. It's almost game over for any other party come the next election. But simultaneously, some stuff could go wrong. A few high-profile issues around different characters. Never a good look for any party. And like anyone else, they're not infallible. They could suffer a bit of that as well. You want to make a comment on all of this? Angela Rayner, your thoughts on that? Plus, of course, Nigel Farage, the big speech. You heard it here on Talk. Your responses to that as well. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is indeed 6. It is indeed 6. It is indeed Talk. It was just the voice that said, from 6. Well, everything is from 6 at some point. It's 6 twice a day, don't you know? Lots to get through here. 0344 499 1000. That resignation of Angela Rayner. Ed Miliband has posted this on X. He says, Angela Rayner is one of the great British political figures of our time. Generations will grow up with stronger rights at work and in new homes because of her vision and leadership. I know she will continue to stand at the front of the fight for social justice in this country. What an absolute bozo. Has he not realised why she's gone, what she's done? She will continue to stand at the front of the fight for social justice. I mean, she was ripping off the taxpayer to the tune of 40 grand, if you want to read it that way. Talking about new homes for people, well, she had a couple of them, didn't she? Lots to talk about here. The government, of course, are currently, or Keir Starmer is currently reshuffling, I think is the phrase. Rayner has stepped down as both Housing Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister, and it's meant there's a couple of other characters in all of this. Lucy Powell and Ian Murray also expected to leave the government, while Nigel Farage brought forward his Reform UK conference speech, warning Rayner's resignation will spark a major rift within Labour and saying the party is not fit to govern. Let's have a little listen to what Mr Farage said.
But you simply can't get away, can you, from being the Housing Secretary and avoiding £40,000 of council tax. And it screams to entitlement. It screams to a government that, despite all the promises that this would be a new, different kind of politics, is as bad, if not worse, than the one that went before. We've been told that right now the Prime Minister is organising a reshuffle, yet another reset, and that the names of the new cabinet will come out later on this afternoon. Well, I didn't want the Prime Minister to do anything to spoil our conference, and that's why I've come on the stage now to say they are not fit to govern.
They are not fit to govern. Robert Taylor is with us, political columnist and journalist. Good afternoon to you, Robert.
Hello, Ian.
Wow, what a day. I mean, a couple of big stories here. The big Farage speech, and of course, before that, Angela Rayner legging it for the Hills. She had no choice. The writing, of course, was on the wall. Now she's gone, and the reshuffle is happening, which is including sort of wider than just the bit that she's left vacant.
Yeah, well, I just wonder whether Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner will be reflecting today on that old saying, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, because never has a politician like Rayner used as many personal attacks to bring down her opponents, Nadhim Zahawi, Boris Johnson, of course, and Labour's attacks on Rishi Sunak's families, particularly his wife's tax arrangements. And now they have, well, of course, they repeatedly called their opponents scum in the case of Angela Rayner. Never has a politician boasted more about the importance of personal integrity like Rayner and Starmer. And now the ethics advisor is clear. She's not a victim. She's been brought down by breaking the ministerial code to save herself tax. I just say good riddance. I'm sorry, I have some personal sympathy, but she had no sympathy for the Tory politicians she and Starmer brought down.
Absolutely. And it's all of that, isn't it? It's the fact that she spent I mean, to me, the two facts in all of this, whatever the tax thing or however that kind of happened, was it an error, an oversight? We'll never maybe fully know. Did she deliberately go, oh, I could save 40 grand here? Who knows? Again, we'll never know the answer to that. But to me, it was exactly that. She spent a lifetime in politics talking about Tory scum and these horrendous people in the Conservative Party, really personalised it. She's given loads of speeches. We played them over the last 48 hours about transparency and decency in government. And I think there's one she actually says that if you're caught breaking the rules, you have to go. So there's plenty of evidence on that one. And of course, secondly, specifically related to what she's done, she's the flipping housing minister. So there's no way she could have ever, on those two counts, she could never have survived this.
And what is most unedifying, I think, here is that having complained about Tory ministers holding on to the reins of power, holding on to office when they had got found out, she did exactly the same. We all knew from 48 hours ago, I talked to your colleague Mike on, I think it was Wednesday morning, yesterday morning, saying she's gone. And yet she held on until the ethics advisor says, you have broken the ministerial code. She knew she had broken the ministerial code. So why did she have to hang on? Why did she have to do the very thing that she not only criticised Tory ministers for doing, but demanded that their reputation, their livelihood and their job be taken away.
Absolutely. And that's exactly the problem she had. And of course, this is Angela Rayner, who was a very specific character in the Labour story. I've said this, and I think you and I have discussed it many times, Robert. I love her backstory from coming from, not the conventional route of politics, living in a council house, struggling as a single mum, as a teenager, and finding herself, fast forward a number of years, standing there initially at the dispatch box, taking the Prime Minister of the country to task. I thought that was a remarkable journey. I want to see more of those kind of journeys. I thought it was brilliant. But of course, her socialist credentials were somewhat dented as well in all of this. Credibility as the totemic figure of the left took a massive hit. And when people I know it's only social media, but when the TikTokers start to pile in with videos like this, the game is up. Let's have a listen.
Bought me one house, bought me two, flip another flat, tax man no clue, 80k saved with a bright and tan, dodging more duty than the average man. How many homes can Rayner buy? Laughing at you with a tax they slide. How many homes I'll name them all, big and dancing in the comments hall. How many homes can Rayner buy? Laughing at you with a tax they slide. How many homes I'll name them all, big and dancing in the comments hall. Tax man crying, Rayner smiling, one rule for me.
I think that's utterly superb, Robert. That's the sort of thing that would have probably taken about a month in a production house a little while back, but AI does its business these days. And of course, it's that there she is, how many houses can Rayner have? She's surrounded by money in this video. And that is it's a cultural tipping point from the woman who's the working class stalwart of the left to being seen as this. Actually, I say one thing, but I do another.
Well, it's exactly that. And of course, it always used to be said that Tories are brought down by sex scandals, Labour politicians are brought down by money-related scandals. So, they know that the warning is there. Yeah. And Angela Rayner, of everyone, should have known that the warning was there. But we now know that, according to the ethics advisor who's looked into this in detail, she underpaid taxes. It looks to me as though she was warned that she had to take some further advice. She chose not to, and that has come to sting her badly. She's not a victim here. A lot of people are saying on X and other social media platforms, woe is Angela, she's some kind of victim. I'm afraid she's not. She's got caught out trying to defraud the taxpayer by £40,000. It's not good enough.
Yeah. In this reshuffle, we know that Lucy Powell, the leader of the House of Commons, has gone. I think there's possibly one other, Ian Murray, Secretary of State for Scotland. It looks like he's going to be reshuffled. Now, those positions were really nothing to do with this particular story. It was obviously seen as a bit of a catalyst to have shove a broom through the cabinet, as it were. I think I'm right in saying that he doesn't have to have a role of Deputy Prime Minister, Robert. I mean, he can do away with that.
Yeah, absolutely right. They don't have to have a Deputy Prime Minister. And I've heard rumours today that he might abolish the position of Deputy Labour leader altogether, which will be an almighty headache for him, because if that leadership election goes ahead, it will presumably happen during the Labour Party conference. Presumably the members who will elect a deputy leader will elect someone from the left. Of course, that's where Starmer claimed to be just 4 years ago and has kind of deceived everyone on that. So that would cause yet another almighty headache for Starmer just when he doesn't need it. And he might calculate that it's better not to have, as you say, a deputy prime minister, and not to even have a deputy leader of the Labour Party.
We will watch with interest, and the popcorn has already been purchased. Robert, thank you very much indeed. Let's get a word and a response on the big events of today. Former Cabinet Minister for the Conservative Party, David Mellor, joins us. David, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
So it's always a moment.
We live in exciting times.
We do indeed. It's always a moment, isn't it, when a kind of high-profile politician has to walk the plank for whatever reason. I mean, you know the story through your own experience, but let's focus on Angela Rayner for the purposes of this. I mean, there was clearly, and I'm sure you picked it up probably 48 hours ago, she couldn't have survived this.
No, she couldn't have survived this because she didn't deserve to survive it. I mean, there was a lot of nonsense spoken about how she had checked up what the situation was, but manifestly she hadn't. That's the problem. She never did the requisite checks to find out whether she was on the right side of the law or the wrong side, and manifestly all the time she's been on the wrong side.
And what, of course, makes this, you know, not just mysterious, but, you know, utterly jaw-dropping is the fact that she was the housing minister. I mean, of all, you know, she probably works in an office where the greatest tax experts on the planet exist, and yet still made this fundamental error.
Yes, I think it's very, very odd. And of course, the person who stands there, fat, dumb, and happy, is the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
I mean, what does he think he's playing at? Doesn't he realise that Rayner, for several days now, has had no credibility at all?
Yeah.
And now she's walking the plank. And what's he going to do? Does he really believe that he is a credible Prime Minister under these circumstances? You know, I have nothing particularly against him. I have nothing particularly these days in favour of the Conservative Party. But you can't help but look at this situation and think, what a mess.
Do governments invariably get through these things, though? I mean, if you look at your time in government, whether you were Chief Secretary to the Treasury, you were Arts Minister, Home Office Minister, as memory serves me correctly, David. You did all these roles, and of course, you know, alongside you, many colleagues, they came, they went, some were fired, some resigned, some just gave up, whatever. I mean, some would say it's just part of the cut and thrust of it. It's tomorrow people will forget Angela Rayner, Starmer will move on. Is the total sum of the government, the Prime Minister at the helm, always more powerful?
Probably. But I don't think this will do Starmer any good.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people will look at Starmer and say, what a mess that man is. I personally am quite shocked. You see, the thing about lawyers, I mean, I'm a lawyer. I have to admit to you I was a lawyer. And I never saw myself as somebody who was anything other than strengthened by a legal background that allowed me, I think, to be more effective in certain of the jobs that I did than if I wasn't a lawyer. But I don't feel with him being a lawyer has done him a lot of good, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a big job, let's be frank. Very big job as a person in charge of prosecutions. And I don't understand why he doesn't see that he is absolutely, just looks absolutely weak and wet now. And it's really quite disappointing because, you know, for my part, I look at the state of modern British politics and think, how good are these people? And it's not hard to take the view that a lot of them are not very good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that what we've seen here with Starmer is somebody who has really rather fallen apart. And he doesn't have just to appoint an old mate to be, for instance, Attorney General. What's that all about?
Yeah.
He'll be the next one to go. He cannot survive, you know?
And just a word, David, in terms of Angela, you know, how when a political career comes crashing down, and of course you've been in politics for a long time and in very successfully, and in law very successfully, but you know what it's like to lose a big job in that respect. Just give us an overview. I know it was a while back, and I'm not prying into details here. I'm genuinely interested on a human level how that feels on the day that you lose the car, the prestige, and the office.
Well, it's actually never as much as a problem as you may think, particularly the shambles that we were in the middle of. But I think from her point of view, this will be devastating for her. And I think there are a lot of people in the Labour Party who have a lot of time for her. But I just don't see how she can get back from this. I think she's probably finished. And that will be very sad for a whole lot of people in the Labour Party for whom she represented, a working class politician fairly far out on the left wing, and she's left a hole.
Yeah.
Quite a big hole, actually.
It's going to be interesting. There is a reshuffle underway at the moment. We'll wait and see what happens there. But meantime, David Mellor, thank you for speaking with us. I really appreciate your time. David Mellor, former Cabinet Minister under John Major, of course. He was Secretary of State for National Heritage, as the Culture Department was called then. Prior to that, Chief Secretary to the Treasury. He's been in the Home Office, the Department for Health. But he had a spectacular fall from grace. It's interesting you said it's not as bad as you think it might feel. I always think with ministers, because it is the impossible job. I mean, it's also a non-stop job. You are never off. There's no weekends. There's no end of day. It's non-stop. And I'm not asking or suggesting we feel sorry for these people, but I'd imagine there must be a bit of you, when it goes, you might think, thank God for that. I haven't got to get up in the morning. Well, I certainly haven't got to do the hours I was doing. 0344 499 1000. More comments from you on the way. This is Talk.
Fortunately, in this case, justice has been served. Every peaceful protester who went to the Bell Hotel in Epping has had their protest entirely vindicated by these verdicts. What it also shows is that this lamentable Home Office, led by the deplorable Yvette Cooper, who readily admits that it puts the concerns and the interests of asylum seekers and illegal migrants
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A lot of messages coming in. Mike in Lincoln says, Ian, oh dear, your guest James, this was James Mathewson, former Labour spokesperson, but very much of the Corbyn skin. James is suffering from Farage derangement syndrome. I mean, he started talking about fascist speech, for God's sake. His visceral hate of anything not socialist was laid bare. I think he's most likely in for a huge shock come the next election, isn't he? It's one of the problems, thank you, Mike, for that, one of the problems with sort of left-wing thinking. And I did say to him at the end, I understand why some people are Corbyn supporters. I get it, OK? I mean, I find it unfathomable that the logic could even be constructed to support such a bizarre affiliation. But, you know, I get it. Some people think that way and they want to see the world that way. And we're a democracy. But on the left, he can't see. He just genuinely, he's not even being to coin a phrase, an arse. I mean, literally, he can't see why anyone would go, well, what is this reform thing? And even if you take reform out of it, we would have almost the same views of the Conservatives. They can't see it. They can't settle on the fact that, oh, it's another party that I don't support. No. You have to kind of malign. You have to decide these people aren't just opposition, they're enemies. And they're not just enemies, they're evil enemies. That's how left-wing politics works. It was there in a nutshell, and well spotted, Mike, as well, because it was exactly that. It is deranged thinking. Let's get a word from Ian in London. Ian, what have you got for us? Good afternoon.
Ian, good afternoon.
Hi.
I've never, ever sort of had an argument with you, but when you said about Angela Rayner was great at the dispatch boxes, yeah, but that is no good. You can't just have that in your locker.
Oh, 100%. No, I don't suggest that made her the perfect, fully formed MP or politician.
Not at all, because if you look at it nowadays, you've got, dare I say, Trump in the White House, charismatic. You had Boris Johnson here, charismatic. Right? The only one that I'd say charismatic, but actually is trying to do the best job he possibly can for his people, is the one in Ukraine. You know, who was actually a comedian. They actually got him in as a joke.
That's right. Became the leader.
And he's become the leader that's actually stood up to Putin.
Yeah.
But every one of the others, and with, you know, as people say, has Starmer got a problem with women? Yes, it does seem to be that he can't pick the right ones. Right? I'm sorry to his wife about that, but he can't seem to pick the right ones because every woman he's picked for the cabinet is letting him down. But he's also got Mad Ed, as you said, saying that what a wonderful job Angela Rayner's done.
I mean, you can't. I mean, these people they are nuts. You know, it's like, you know, he's entitled to his view. But what a strange thing to say when you've just had to resign from government for impropriety.
You know, and as everybody says, so you look at it, who can take over? You've got David Lammy, who is a complete idiot as Foreign Secretary. You've got Miliband, as I said, West Streeting, and I live just off of his constituency. He is fighting his whole life to try and keep his seat. Won't keep it at the next election.
Yeah, because his seat was on I mean, despite the fact that he's seen as a bit of a lovey of that, the future of the party, he's on a wafer-thin majority, as you rightly say. Ian, the news is upon us. You've been great. Thank you very much indeed. Let's get the headlines now at 3 o'clock on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And good afternoon. Yeah, welcome back to the home of comment. And so much to get through. What an incredible news day. Angela Rayner. Well, it's the same thing, right? Angela Rayner has resigned as Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary after admitting she underpaid stamp duty on her second home. She essentially dodged tax, saying she deeply regrets the mistakes and takes full responsibility, which is very decent of her, because there was nowhere to go, really, but go, yeah, I did, I cocked it up. And I now go. She walks the plank. The move has sparked a major cabinet reshuffle, it seems. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, Lucy Powell, the Leader of the House of Commons, has gone. Secretary of State Ian Murray, believed to be one of the first casualties as well. Is there more to come? Full details as it happens. Does he even continue with the role of Deputy Prime Minister? Meanwhile, Nigel Farage moved his conference speech forward following Rayner's resignation, declaring Labour are not fit to govern and warning the fight for the next Deputy Prime Minister will tear the government apart. More on that as well. Everything you need to know, all the breaking news right here on Talk. 0344 499 1000. Gaz in Pontefract says, normally I'd be concerned at all this sleaze and mess and resignations in the government as it detracts from them running the country. But seeing as all this bunch of clowns seem to be doing is running our great country into the ground, then we might all be better off for a short while. Have a great weekend. Yeah, it's a really curious time, isn't it? And one here from Carmel in Aberdeenshire says, people are fed up to the back teeth of politicians saying one thing to get into power and then doing something completely different once they walk through the door of number 10. It's a bit rich of James Mathewson to say Nigel Farage is gaslighting. Labour were gaslighting in the lead up to the election, and they've continued to gaslight ever since they got into Downing Street. Nigel Farage is resonating with people because he's voicing their concerns. Labour are only interested in ideology and ignoring people's concerns, says Carmel. Yeah, there is a bit of that. Although Mathewson did say he actually doesn't even support the Labour Party now either. I think he's firmly of the Corbyn skin. So maybe when Jeremy and Sultana finally get their party together and can actually come up with a name, maybe James will be joining that, along with maybe a couple of others. We'll see. Let's speak with Bob Seeley, former Conservative MP. Good afternoon to you, Bob.
Hi, Ian, and good afternoon to your listeners and viewers.
Nice to have you with us. I mean, politics, you know this better than me. It's a funny old game, to coin a phrase. And, you know, people come, people go. You can lose a seat at the election. You can get fired. You can have to resign. You could be caught in some kind of honey trap or whatever. You know, there's all these variables at play. But when you're on the sidelines looking in, I include myself in this, and, you know, I suppose to a degree yourself, because you're in a different position to where you were just over a year ago. Sure. I mean, it is a kind of popcorn moment, isn't it, when you think, wow, I mean, this is the gift. The House of Commons is the gift that keeps on giving at the moment.
I mean, what can you say? I mean, firstly, as regards your party, I thought it was already called Jezbollah. Is that just me? I mean,
maybe they're sticking with that. I think a lot of their supporters would be happy with that, to be honest.
Yeah, I just think everyone knows where you are with Jezbollah. So
that's true.
I think I almost applied for membership just so I could advise them on the name, but obviously I stopped short of that. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a bit like watching a perpetual car crash with this government, and I speak as someone who was in House of Commons for the last one. That wasn't great, let's face it. But after 14 years, if this is the best they can do, God help us. Yeah. So what you had the beginning of phase 2 on Monday, which pretty much perfectly coincided with the very good Telegraph and fascinating Telegraph story looking at Rayner's shenanigans. Look, she couldn't cling on. Well, she was certainly trying to cling on, but she couldn't in the end. Yeah. And it was pretty dire. And it's not the fact that she was a woman. It's not the fact that she came from a working background. Nobody cares about that. It is the hypocrisy which is absolutely made her toast. The fact is that she went after every single member of the previous government, indeed of the ruling party, the Conservatives back in the day. She presented to be purer than pure, and then she was immediately found out, and pretty quickly as well.
Indeed, and it's always curious, those moments of the sort of hanging on thing, and I keep making the very same point. The problem she had, in addition to swerving the tax, was that she was literally the housing minister, which is, again, you couldn't. If you were making a new Netflix drama on the sort of the inner workings of politics, you wouldn't write that into the script, because people go, well, that would never happen. Surely the housing minister would, be in an office next to a top property lawyer who could tell her everything she needs to know.
No, the parody, if The Thick of It did a new series, and where are they when you need them? If The Thick of It did a new series, you've got a corruption minister done, or who's resigned because of her, maybe that she's not corrupt, but she has links to corruption back in Bangladesh. You've got a government minister, a corruption minister resigning over alleged corruption. Yep. You've got a transport minister who's an ex-copper resigning because she fibbed in court, if I understand correctly. You've got a housing minister who resigned because she kicked tenants out of her house because she didn't want to, she wanted to make more money from renting before the government changes came in. And now you have the Secretary of State for Housing losing her job because she didn't read the tax on second homes enough. It is slightly, you are in a world of parody. And actually, just watching, as I do on Twitter, the Prime Minister's account, Keir Starmer's account, sometimes it reads like a parody account. I don't know if people are aware. I don't know if his team are aware of how comic his own non-parody Twitter feed is beginning to sound.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you do read it sometimes and think, did he really write? Well, obviously he didn't specifically, but is this the official account?
He said, I'm growing the economy. No, you're not. Yeah. I'm creating jobs. No, you're not. We have high standards in this government. Well, give back your trousers.
Simple as that. Listen, I mean, there's a reshuffle underway, and of course that means that a few heads will roll. They've already, we understand, lost Lucy Powell. She was the leader of the House of Commons. Not quite sure what Lucy Powell did so wrong, although of course she famously and quite recently, during a heated debate on Any Questions on Radio 4, talked about dog whistle politics when somebody mentioned grooming gangs, which was a pretty horrendous moment. In fact, I think we can have a look. We can actually let's have a little listen to this. Bob, because I think this just, it seals it nicely to be reminded of what she said.
If anybody saw the documentary on Channel 4 about rape gangs over this...
we want to blow that little trumpet now, do we? Yeah, okay,
there is a real issue
let's get that dog whistle out, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, that was a horrendous thing for her to say when... I mean, I don't know what she was thinking, but it sort of betrayed what some of these people on the left really believe.
Yeah, I mean, two things. Just about some of the people going are pretty useless and some aren't. I'm sorry that Ian's going, the Secretary of State for Scotland, because actually I thought he was a decent enough character and personally pleasant. Lucy Powell, I'm afraid I don't put in the same category. I was a fairly unpleasant person who despised people who didn't share her politics. And look, the fundamental problem, Ian, with people on the left, and you get this much less with people on the right, is that people on the left think they are morally pure. Yeah. And even when they are making mistakes, it's morally pure people making mistakes. So they're good even when they're not. When if you're on the right, you're bad even when you're good, sort of thing. So it is just this sense of the double standards. And when it comes to Lucy Powell and the grooming gang, she doesn't understand that actually sort of the mass rape of white girls by people from another ethnic and racial background is a big thing. She just doesn't seem to get that.
100%.
And she doesn't understand, actually, it is a devastating thing for post-war Britain. It is one of the worst things that's ever happened in this country. And for her, I mean, in her mindset, people will just use this for politics. Why can't they just cover it up for the sake of multiculturalism, etc., etc., when actually it is a very, very damning indictment of our immigration policy.
And interestingly, and it is a kind of perhaps just a detail in this, but on that clip we just played, the other voice was saying, did you see the Channel 4 documentary on grooming gangs? Not have you heard a rumour or whatever. He was referring to a not exactly right-wing media outlet that had made a documentary on this. And straight away, I mean, she pounced like a like a whippet on a rabbit on this one. And she couldn't wait to get that dog whistle line out.
That's because you're a conservative. I think it was Tim Montgomery's voice, who was conservative, switched to Reform. He is a very good bloke, is Tim, and I got a lot of time for him. He's very smart. Set up quite a popular website in the political world called Conservative Home for any of your listeners, viewers who may come across that. So he's a smart character and a very ethical one. He's sort of very properly Christian person.
100%.
In a good way, not in a sort of hypocrite way, sort of, if you pardon, the understanding. But of course, for her, a conservative raising this issue, it is not an issue to be raised. It's you're a conservative, therefore I'm going to smear you because you shouldn't be raising this issue.
The other big story today, of course, Reform UK's day one of their conference in Birmingham. Nigel Farage giving his keynote speech. He brought that speech forward because on the back of the Angela Rayner news. Incredibly serendipitous for Mr Farage. He must have thought that Christmas had come early when this happened, when it did. Let's have a listen to what the leader of Reform UK had to say specifically on Rayner.
But you simply can't get away, can you, from being the Housing Secretary and avoiding £40,000 of council tax. And it screams to entitlement. It screams to a government that, despite all the promises that this would be a new, different kind of politics, is as bad, if not worse, than the one that went before. We've been told that right now the Prime Minister is organising a reshuffle. Yet another reset, and that the names of the new cabinet will come out later on this afternoon. Well, I didn't want the Prime Minister to do anything to spoil our conference, and that's why I've come on the stage now to say they are not fit to govern.
They are not fit to govern. I mean, I appreciate, Bob, it does come under the category of, well, he would say that, wouldn't he? Any opposition politician would say that. He's always been a good operator, Nigel Farage, and, he was gifted with that breaking news of Angela Rayner. And perhaps it's, it's seen by many, with respect to your party, the Conservatives, Bob, they are seen by many as almost the unofficial opposition at the moment.
Yeah, look, Nigel's doing very well, and I always think that after 2019 we should have treated him very differently from we did, and more fool us. And he stood aside to make sure that Boris won, and we didn't give him any credit for it. So you make your bed, you lie in it. So fair enough. I think the Mayor's did a really interesting piece today saying we have got to get rid of this government. And I'm a patriot. I despair of what's happening in our country. And I've been pretty cynical about most of the last 30 years of it, to be honest. We need a new start. Now, whether that comes with a Reform government, a reinvigorated Conservative government, who knows? A Labour government that may even get part of its act together and be slightly less destructive to our economy than it's being. But we can't go on like this. So the interesting question now, and a year ago, this is just a barking thing to say, but now, is this government even going to last 5 years? There is a question that actually, if it has austerity forced on it, and I use the word, inverted commas, by the IMF, is Labour actually going to fall to pieces in government? Are they actually even going to keep it together? Are they going to drift? If things get so bad, you're going to see 10, 20, 30 Labour MPs think, what the hell? I'm going to lose my seat anyway, so I'm going to go and join Hezbollah, or I'll go and join this sort of wacko Green Party, which has seemingly given up on the environment and is now just a sort of pro-Palestinian, pro-trans movement.
Yeah, that's a whole bizarre. We could talk for an hour on Jack Polanski.
Who's just a fortune. You can begin to stop something. I think the problem is that any incoming Conservative government, and I use that for either Reform coalition, whatever, any non-Labour Conservative government coming in of whatever variety, is you're going to have the blob trying to stop you from day one. So there is going to have to be a really well thought out plan of action. What do you do with the Human Rights Act? What do you do with ECHR? What do you do with the Equalities Act? To what extent can you unpick all this stuff? When we're talking about free speech, which bit of the Communications Act do you have to nullify? So you're going to have some kind of grand scrapping act. And you're going to have to do this in order. Do you try to take emergency powers so that you can sack individual civil servants who've sort of gone off the on reservation on woke? Do you take emergency powers to basically use an RAF camp in Kent and get it fitted out in 2 weeks with tents or porter cabins, so you start deporting? You're going to have reams of lawyers who will just be mounting sort of daily lawfare on any seriously Conservative government coming into this country. country. So all of this is going to have to be really thought out. So I don't dispute Nigel's intention, but it's just the question. You're going to have to get your ducks in a row. Otherwise, the human rights lawyers, the Starmers and the
they're interchangeable.
Lord Homer, all these people, they will be queuing up to get brownie points as well as to make a good living off legally in trying to get trying to repeatedly defeat the government in court. So you are going to have lawfare on a scale that we've never seen before in this country, to say nothing of strike action by the RMT, the teaching union, which is now dominated by the hard left. So it's going to be a very, very divisive time. Immediately you get a government which is serious about withdrawing from the sort of new Labour human rights structures.
Yeah, spot on. Bob, listen, it's always a pleasure to speak. Thank you for your time. Bob Seeley, former Conservative MP, with us on the programme. His thoughts on what's going on. He's bang on pretty much everything he said there. This from Nigel in Brighton, who says, don't forget Peter Mandelson had to resign at least twice under the Blair government, and the media let him bring him back into government both times. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Angela Rayner come back in some capacity, as she is the darling of the left-wing media. Keep up the good work, says Nigel. Thank you, Nigel, for that. Although it was interesting to see some left-wing commentators, and I think the Mirror possibly, which is their main, I know the Mirror doesn't mean very much these days, but is it still I had to check earlier to see if it was still going. But yeah, I think they gave her a bit of a kicking, which was unusual. But Nigel is quite right about Peter Mandelson. He came back twice. There was the passport affairs, the Hinduja brothers, as I remember. There was that. And then there was the loan, wasn't there? He'd kind of, this was a guy that really wanted to live the big, opulent kind of senior cabinet minister lifestyle. And he borrowed £6 squillion from his mate to buy this beautiful townhouse. I think it was all about the loan and the lack of transparency. But Blair got him back twice. And I think I'm right in saying that even when Gordon Brown took over, I think he brought him in as an advisor in some capacity. Of course, he went to Brussels, didn't he, as an executive over there. I can't remember the title. It begins with C, but that could be all sorts when talking about Mandelson. He did that, and now, of course, he's the British ambassador to the United States. So he's always he's like the cat, always falling on its paws. He's a bit of that. Curious chap. 0344 499 1000. We're going to go back to the calls right here on Talk next.
Fortunately, in this case, justice has been served. Every peaceful protester who went to the Bell Hotel in Epping has had their protest entirely vindicated by these verdicts. What it also shows is that this lamentable Home Office, led by the deplorable Yvette Cooper, who readily admits that it puts the concerns and the interests of asylum seekers and illegal migrants
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Alison says, Rayner has to be in the jungle this year. I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. Yeah, there's almost no doubt that she will be asked to appear on that. And she could probably get 150, 200 grand for that. And bearing in mind, her previous wage has been halved, and she's just bought a plush old place down there in Brighton. So she needs all the wonga she can get. She'll do all right in that respect, I think. Thank you for that. Alison David says Farage is speaking to the room, and that room is the vast majority of citizens in the United Kingdom. That's something that the left just can't get their head around. KS makes this point. James Mathewson, previous lefty guest, says James is lost. What he says about Nigel Farage is all true and much more about Keir Starmer. Yes, completely lost. Lots to get through at this end, including your calls. Andrew's in Hertfordshire. What have you got for us, Andrew? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. I hope you're well. Let's get this absolutely clear, Ian. They won't do March next year. They're finished. The actual fight within the Labour Party is going to be brutal beyond anything you've ever seen in your life.
Go on.
And the reason we never stopped the boats, the reason we never went to Rwanda was Care for Calais and the unison unions and the civil service unions. They took the Conservative Party through the courts. And that is exactly what's going to happen to Starmer now. Anything he tries to do in relation to reforming anything, they'll go to court. So he is the weakest Prime Minister ever because he's got the strongest majority.
Yeah.
The party's split down the middle. She's deputy of the party because the party voted her there. He can't stop that being the case unless she's resigned from that post. They won't do March. The economy's in the floor. There's no hiring. There's no growth. Try doing half an hour on what they've done that's benefited the country. Dedicate your programme to that.
It's really tricky, isn't it, to be able to... I mean, genuinely, what we should all be able to do, and I'm sure you're of the same kind of thinking, Andrew, when Labour won the election last year, obviously we thought, hello, this is a bit weird, a Labour government are back. However, as a government, I wanted them to succeed. Of course I did, because I live in this country. I wanted the government to succeed. I didn't want Labour as a party to succeed, had no time. But you naturally want the party in power to do well for our economy, NHS and all the other bits and pieces. But they haven't got close to that. They had a series of these massive own goals, didn't they, in the first 6 months. There was no honeymoon period. They've lost all manner of characters. The style in which they've gone as well, Andrew, you know, the corruption minister getting embroiled in a corruption scandal, the homeless minister making people homeless, and now the housing minister not knowing what tax to pay on a housing transaction. I mean, this is woeful.
Yeah, but your point is interesting in that you and I come from an analogue world where we had 4 channels and we read things in the Times and the Telegraph. We live in a digital world now.
Yep.
It's all accelerated. Everybody thinks 5 years. No, actually, 6 months in politics is a week now because of the digital age. They're gone by March. Gone.
Well, a lot of people did say, I mean, yesterday, you know, we were talking about the fact that some people predicted they'd be gone by the summer. Some said Christmas. You're putting March on this one, Andrew.
Yeah, because that's the time when the IMF have to come in, because they'll know how little tax take we've had.
There it is. Listen, Andrew, thank you very much indeed for that. Andrew in Hertfordshire. Leighton says, I can see clearly now the rain has gone. I like that. That's good. I'd like to think Leighton is the first person to say that. These things start somewhere. Jack's in Kent. How you doing, Jack?
Oh, hello, Ian. Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Before I go on to Farage, I tell you one thing that always puzzles me about socialists is that they believe that people go bad. They go astray because of their poor environments, because they are poor. And you wonder how they square that with the existence of all these wicked Tories from comfortable, privileged backgrounds.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's really interesting.
It doesn't make sense.
I mean, there's something sort of Animal Farmy, isn't there, about this Rayner thing? You know, that there she was as this stalwart of the left. And half an hour later, she's building up a property portfolio.
Yeah, well, you know, whenever I hear or see Neil Kinnock, the thing that springs to mind is the final chapter of Animal Farm.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, Kinnock and Glennis, I think is no longer with us, but him and his wife, of course, they led a very, you know, they were movers and shakers and loved a cocktail party, and they really enjoyed the high life, the very antitheses. Although, you know, in fairness to Kinnock, he was the person that actually changed the Labour Party before Blair. You know, he was the hors d'oeuvre to Blair, I suppose.
Yes, because now he's in the... sitting in the place that he swore he would abolish.
Yeah. They love that one as well, don't they? Yeah. Let's get into the House of Lords. 350 quid a day for naff.
Two things that struck me about Farage. I mean, I was a bit disappointed with the speech. I suppose perhaps he composed it in a hurry.
I have to say, I didn't think it was his strongest speech, and I also thought he sounded a little bit nervous.
He did, and also. It wasn't council tax that she avoided, was it? Unless I've lost track there.
There was a... Oh, my goodness. There was a council tax issue at some point. Because remember, before this scandal, there was a kind of another one which didn't really come to much. And it was referred to the police, and the police said no crime had been committed. I think that was about council tax, based in her own area, which house she lived in and all the rest of it.
Yeah, but this £40,000, that wasn't to do with council tax.
No, that was stamp duty.
I thought that was a bit odd. And also, I was a bit worried about this Trump-like claim that he'd stop the boats within 2 weeks.
I think, I can honestly imagine, Jack, that bit of advice coming directly from Donald Trump.
Well, yes, that's what it sounded like to me.
You know, you need to put out a big headline-grabbing kind of, you know, it doesn't matter if it's not 2 weeks. If it's 4 weeks, no one's going to go, oh, my God, he went way over. But because Trump did it with Ukraine, didn't he? And other areas too. I'll sort this out in, was it 48 hours?
He was 24 hours, wasn't it, I think?
Maybe 24 hours, yeah. And here we are, you know, God knows how long, nearly a year later, and it's still, and various meetings, and it's still not being sorted.
No, I was a bit disappointed with it, I have to say.
That's a fair point. Listen, Jack, thank you very much indeed. Lovely to talk. Have a cracking weekend. Talking of the weekend, by the way, I'm going to be here on a Sunday. I don't think have I ever worked on a Sunday here at Talk. Maybe about 5 years ago, I think I might have done a Sunday afternoon for some reason. But Peter Cardwell isn't here, and somehow I've ended up doing his show this coming Sunday at... what time's he on? 10 a.m. 10. And then I thought, well, it's okay because I'm going to be working with a top team. And then I realised that Dave, who's on the desks, is going to be with us again on Sunday. I was absolutely devastated at this horrendous revelation, frankly. Nonetheless, Sunday, 10 o'clock, in for Peter Cardwell. Lots still to come. More comment from you on the way. It's 3:30. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Colin, County Durham, says, Ian, I'm not celebrating. She hasn't resigned as an MP, so no by-election, and she could still end up as Prime Minister at a later date. Yeah, as long as she's still a Labour MP, in theory, that could happen. There is such a thing as being a busted flush, and the trouble is, you know, in politics, even if she just made a massive mistake, and the mistake is twofold, really. The mistake is the actual mistake of not properly checking out what your stamp duty arrangements or requirements are for a certain setup that she had, and I know it was a curious setup. She had a trust, and was it a first house, etc. So there's that. But also the next mistake was to suggest that she had previously been advised that she'd done it correctly, and then we discovered from the team that would have been advising her that they never did advise her of that. So then the whole thing went from being what could have been a bit of a mistake to something that looks like a either a deliberate error or something that only a moron could have missed. So she was kind of scuppered either way on that one. Curious times. David is in South Wales. What have you got for us, David? Good afternoon.
Hello. Yeah, basically, she's committed fraud to the government and fraud to herself and everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really she should be in Nick.
Well, she'll certainly get, as I read today, she will get, I think there's a fine of about, I can't remember what, there's a specific name for it, maybe about 12,000 quid. So on top of the 40,000 that she will now also owe, she's got to pay another 12,000.
Yeah, but she's still fraudulent, and this government is the most fraudulent we've ever had in this country.
Wait, well, listen, David, they say that they're the most honest ever. Remember, party second, country first. What a load of old cobblers.
It is a load of cobblers. She should be investigated for both the houses, all the houses that she's answering questions on. And not only that, Starmer should be with her.
Yeah. Well, I think we'd all quite like to see Starmer and her row off on a boat into the political sunset. Not sure we'll get that dream. They might never speak again. David in South Wales, thank you very much indeed for that. More comments coming in from you. Leon says Farage wasn't slagging off the UK. This was reference his appearance to Congress. He was slagging off the useless left-wing Labour government. One here, completely disagree with Jonathan. The speech was great. Come on, reform, says Sophia. I thought it was a good speech. I didn't think... It's quite hard, a leader's speech. I didn't think it was Farage's best speech. But I don't actually think that matters to me. I mean, my opinion doesn't matter at all. But I don't think it generally matters whether you want to go, oh, yeah, it was his third best or his fifth best. It doesn't really matter. He hoovered up the headlines. There was only one story in town on any other day of the week, and that was Angela Rayner. Now he's come along, of course, right on the back of that. And not an hour later after she resigned, bang, Nigel Farage is in with a newly rewritten speech to reflect his response to that. It absolutely firmed up everything he was going to say. I mean, the timing was extraordinarily in his favour in a massive, massive way. Anyway, not speaking of Nigel Farage, he's promised to stop the boats within 2 weeks of Reform UK entering government. Party leader, of course, in that speech in Birmingham, following Angela Rayner's resignation, he declared that the government was in deep crisis after the Deputy Prime Minister quit following revelations that she underpaid stamp duty on her home in Hove. The Reform leader said he believed this could spark an election as soon as 2027. So previously, Mr Farage hadn't committed to talking about an earlier election, but he's, they've got their ear to the ground that it could be. Let's have a listen on this very point of Rayner to what Nigel Farage had to say.
But you simply can't get away, can you, from being the Housing Secretary and avoiding £40,000 of council tax. And it screams to entitlement. It screams to a government that, despite all the promises that this would be a new, different kind of politics is as bad, if not worse, than the one that went before. We've been told that right now the Prime Minister is organising a reshuffle, yet another reset, and that the names of the new cabinet will come out later on this afternoon. Well, I didn't want the Prime Minister to do anything to spoil our conference, and that's why I've come on the stage now to say they are not fit to govern.
They are not fit to govern. It's interesting. There are rumblings, and I think the Telegraph are talking about this, so I can only attribute it to what the Telegraph are saying, that Yvette Cooper may have been moved in this reshuffle. Now, that would be a particularly big scalp, whether she's moved to another department. But, of course, if you are a cabinet secretary, there's only kind of really a few big positions. Obviously, there's the Prime Minister, there is the Foreign Secretary, and the Chancellor, and the Home Secretary. They're the big positions. So wherever you get moved after that is never going to be quite as delicious for the ego as Home Secretary, where you're ferried around with a variety of cars and big police protection. But that's the rumblings of that speculation coming from the Telegraph. Could she be moved to the role of Foreign Secretary? There is some speculation on that. Let's speak to Myron Sentle-Nathan, former Reform UK candidate. Myron, good afternoon to you. It's never dull.
No, it's never dull. I'm here at the Reform conference right now. I've just stepped outside to get a bit of quiet space to speak to you. But there's a real buzz on the ground, and the timing, as you said, is phenomenal. Angela Rayner, the hypocrisy of going for tax avoidance for a Labour MP. I mean, the equivalent would be for a Reform MP to let out their property to Serco, to illegal migrants. So what we're seeing here is a demise and the kind of attempted resuscitation of a dead body by Keir Starmer of his own Labour Party just a year on. Yeah. And at the same time, the rise of reform. And what I would say what's happening in this conference, especially after Nigel's speech, is the idea that 2027 could be the next general election, and we have the Reform Party, which is now turning a corner, completely absolving its kind of reputation as a protest party, and now a party ready for government that isn't just a one-man band, as has been said before, but has a variety of voices, a variety of personalities who can take control of government and actually deliver change. And so that's what's really going on this conference so far.
Myron, give us a sense of the atmosphere there. There is obviously another day to go. I think the conference goes over tomorrow as well. What's the buzz around that? I'm always intrigued by you get a sense at these things. The last Tory party conference apparently was like a wake, or the last one before the general election was like a wake, whereas the Labour Party conference before the general election was apparently like going to Billy Smart's circus on acid. Apparently nothing like it. What was the feeling there in Birmingham today?
So if I compare it to Birmingham last year we just won their general election. It was a buzz. It was an idea that we could do stuff. Yeah. We could perhaps reach a way further into the country and really stamp our authority across the electorate. That was the feeling last year. The feeling now is we can actually become the next government. We can actually do it. And it's, like I said, 2027 is not that far away. Yeah. The Conservative Party are effectively, I mean, Nadine Doris' defection has said it all, really, but the Conservative Party is effectively digging its own grave, ready to just be terminally destroyed. And the Labour Party is heading in the same direction. And the Reform Party is going in the complete opposite direction. So there is this feeling that all hope is not lost, and we can actually do it. And I was listening to David Starkey just in one of the small little booths on the side. And he was effectively saying that Nigel, the Reform Party, is going to walk the next general election. And the real challenge is the operational execution of policy, not the actual winning of the general election. So that's the feeling, that's the corner that we're turning on at the moment, I think.
Yeah, and there is a sense, and I've said this a number of times, Myron, throughout the course of the show, that although, this is a party with, 4 or 5 MPs at the moment, obviously big success, in the council elections, running the biggest councils in the country right now. Wales just around the corner, which will be a huge moment if an absolute bulldozing through convention if Reform are to hoover up in Wales. But of course, they are still seen, Reform are seen very much by many as almost the official opposition, despite only having a handful of MPs. There is that sense when Labour say something, the media very much don't default to what the Conservatives say in opposition. They kind of ring up Reform people and say, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, well, if you look at one of the polls, I think we're at 35%, which is, the Labour Party and the Conservatives combined not reaching the grand total where Reform is. So it would be silly for Keir Starmer to look anywhere else. But the real point that Nigel brought up in his speech is that the Labour Party are going to fragment. I mean, Angela Rayner going, I think, could set a domino effect in play. And with Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana's party arising, the hard left rising up, you start to find that the Labour Party is such a fractured collection of ideologies. You've got the eco-zealots, you've got the woke identity politics, you've got sectarian politics, you've got the globalists. All of these people cannot hang together, especially not under Keir Starmer. And at the same time, Reform has a unified, cohesive vision for the country. And that is why we're soaring in the polls. And that is why we are the main opposition, despite the number of MPs in the Parliament. What are you making of, just a final point, Myron, the comment Mr Farage made in his speech about promising to stop the boats within 2 weeks? I mean, there's a lot resting on that. There was a sort of almost a nod to kind of Donald Trump, and I mean that kindly in the sense of, make a bold promise. But you've got to try and keep to it, of course. If you understand that the boats are coming over because these are economic illegal migrants who are driven by incentives, if we understand that as the fundamental premise, and then you remove those incentives, you stop the boats. It's as simple as that. So remove indefinite leave to remain. It's remove the possibility of claiming asylum. Put them in detention. Do not allow them to roam the streets. And then eventually look to deport them. You will stop the boats immediately because these are economic migrants who are driven by incentives. They are not asylum seekers. And that's a kind of ridiculous stupidity that Labour and even the Conservatives have fallen into in the past, treating them as potential asylum seekers. No, they are illegal economic migrants driven by incentives. That is what Nigel understands. That's what the Reform Party understands. And that's why we can stop the boats within 2 weeks by removing the incentives. Myron, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the conference, sir. I know there's a lot more to see, a lot of big speeches going on there over the next 24 hours or so. Myron Sentle-Nathan, former Reform UK candidate, very much still part of the party. I would imagine he will probably find a seat that he would like to stand in come the next election. Just to bring you up to... Oh, by the way, thank you to Rachel Louise on X, who sent me this little message, just pointing out there's been no boats arrived in the Channel this week. Apparently zero. 31st of August, none. 1st of September, none. 2nd and 3rd of September, none. And the 4th of September, yesterday, none. Does that mean Keir Starmer's played a blinder? Or does it mean it's tipped down like a flipping monsoon for 4 days and that's why? My money's on the latter. Don't be congratulating anyone on that right now. The big rumours around at the moment, there is a reshuffle on the way. This is clearly much bigger than just replacing Angela Rayner. We know that the leader of the House has gone. We know that the Secretary of State for Scotland has also gone. There are rumblings that Yvette Cooper is set to be moved from her job as Home Secretary. Some are speculating she could become the Foreign Secretary. Now, that is, in terms of status, I don't think the Foreign Secretary carries the weight it once did, by the way, but it would certainly be an equivalence in terms of one of the big 4 roles in Cabinet. Anything other than that is a demotion. It's as simple and as straightforward as that. But this was a Telegraph report, so I have to attribute that as a story being speculated by the Telegraph. 0344 499 1000. We'll have more comment from you on the way. Keep it here. It's Talk.
Fortunately, in this case, justice has been served. Every peaceful protester who went to the Bell Hotel in Epping has had their protest entirely vindicated by these verdicts. What it also shows is that this lamentable Home Office, led by the deplorable Yvette Cooper, who readily admits that it puts the concerns and the interests of asylum seekers and illegal migrants
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Comment from you, this one from S, who says if they bring back Rayner, it would be a real insult to the British people after egg of their on their face, complete madness. Yeah, I mean, Starmer would have said to her in a meeting or a phone call, whatever, you know, Ange, don't worry, you know, give it a year, we can slide you back in somewhere. I don't think that would happen. Not in today's world, not in the world of sharp focus and spotlights all over the place, 24/7 social media. They wouldn't dare, would they? Stevens in Leeds says, let's get Larry the cat to do her job. He's got more brains and he's honest. Honest little cat. Reform, stop the cheap Americanised approach. We are British and deserve better. Yeah, the set was, I thought it was a bit clunky. The set, it kind of looked like a sort of an imitation of the Americanised approach. It didn't quite replicate it, which is huge and a bit more colourful. But, you know, they had bells and whistles. I know what they did. I'm sure it cost a few quid as well. Back to your calls. Zach is in Leeds. What are you thinking, Zach? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Ian. I just had a comment on the cryptocurrency because one of your previous callers was...
Yeah, apparently Mr Farage mentioned it or something in his speech.
Yep. You know, if you've ever been debunked or even, you know, had a payment stopped for a few hours, you know, you can understand you have no independence when these banks can just close out accounts.
Yeah, fair
You know,
point.
without any recourse, without the right to review it independently. And, you know, you might have your money stuck in there for weeks or months.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's okay for, again, this is Farage understanding the normal person because it wouldn't have affected him much. But, you know, if you've only got a couple of £1,000 in savings and the electricity bill is due,
yeah,
you know, you're absolutely screwed. So I think cryptocurrency implemented correctly, I think it's a fantastic way to really get our independence, not just from the official banks, but the stuff working in there.
It's a really good point. And of course,
liberal loonies.
Yeah, and of course, Nigel Farage has been the victim of this, hasn't he? So, you know, he knows only too well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, you know, with especially with no disrespect, but, you know, the older generation, they might be wary of it, which, you know, fair enough.
Here's the problem, though, Zach. There's a massive problem with it, all of this, crypto, Bitcoin, etc. No one knows what the hell it is or how it works.
Yeah, that is true. You know, it is a...
I once asked somebody, sorry to interject. I once said to somebody, how, what's this worth, or Bitcoin, or how to... And he said something like, it depends how deep you mine for it. And I thought, mine for it? What's he on about? I mean, I'm sure that phrase means something to you, but it didn't to me.
You know, just with mining, it's impossible in the UK because of the high energy prices. So even in the technology sector, you can't really get any, you know, server farm costs in the UK must be ridiculous with the electricity cost here.
Oh, 100%, yeah. And they're talking about building the biggest one somewhere, aren't they, at the moment? Here.
Well, it'll be soon with deep pockets and...
And a lot of plugs in the wall.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Listen, Zach, great to have you on. Thank you for that. I know you raise a bigger point that's probably worthy of more discussion in terms of crypto. That's Zach in Leeds. It's 5 to 4. Peter Cardwell, this is why we get out of bed in the morning for days like this. And of course, it's had a couple of turns because
hold on, Ian. Sorry to interrupt you there. Has something happened? Has been some major news story or?
Have you not heard? El Dorado's coming back.
El Dorado's coming back.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
it's coming back on BBC One.
I mean,
yeah.
it's such a quiet news day. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about in the programme.
They're also bringing back Neighbours as well.
Are they?
For the
Excellent.
13th time.
Everybody needs good neighbours.
Everybody needs good neighbours, yeah.
I interviewed Alan Fletcher once, who played Carl Kennedy. It was lovely.
Alan Fletcher, yeah. He used to appear on TalkSport quite a lot.
Did he?
Dr. Carl.
Yeah, Dr. Carl, yeah.
Right. Anyway, aside from all of that, it's a big day in politics, of course.
Yes,
first we have Angela Rayner resign, and then, of course, it chimes with the Reform Conference.
Yes.
You couldn't make that stuff up.
Yes.
Now we've got a reshuffle. We didn't expect a reshuffle. We thought there's going to be replacement of Angela Rayner, certainly as Housing Minister, maybe not as Deputy PM, but as Housing Minister. And then, we hear the Leader of the House has gone, and now there's rumblings of the Home Secretary.
Yeah, so there could well be a three-way switch. So you could have Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, becoming Foreign Secretary, the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, becoming Justice Secretary and Deputy Prime Minister, then the Justice Secretary, Shabna Mahmood, becoming Home Secretary. That would be a very interesting move, I think, all of that. The question, of course, is who's Housing Secretary? Scottish Secretary, gone as well, Ian Murray. He's the one who slagged off Larry the Cat. So,
why in the middle of all of this would you go, I think we need to change the Scottish Secretary?
Well, he
what
just
would
was
have happened?
apparently not doing a very good job. Lucy Powell as well, the one who said that talking about migrants was dog whistle politics.
Oh, she's a nut job,
She's
right?
gone as well. Well, she ran the 2015 election campaign for Ed Miliband and they lost badly. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you can't win in 2015 when you're Ed Miliband, like, seriously. So she's out of cabinet as well as Leader of the House after her ludicrous comments about small boats, saying it was dog whistle politics. Big change in the government. I mean, this was meant to be the launch of Phase 1 on Monday. Phase 2 is not going very well. We're, we're not even a week in.
I mean, again,
and there's
this
a reshuffle.
This is like, if you're Keir Starmer, I don't know whether Keir Starmer swears a lot. Some Prime Ministers do, some don't. You will know this better than me. David Cameron was a bit of a swearer.
He was.
Boris, from occasional swearing, I think.
Generally in quite a creative way.
Theresa May really didn't swear.
Less so.
I think she once said...
Reverend's daughter.
Reverend's daughter, oh, damn it, I think she once said during
running through the fields of wheat.
Oh, dear. Yeah, don't remind me. But I would imagine Keir Starmer today is probably thinking, I started Phase 2 and he did that video which was cringy at the time, it's Phase 2 of what we're doing.
Very David Brandt.